essence, the point of humility is a person doesn't consider himself praiseworthy, even though he knows he has a lot of qualities. If he doesn't think he has qualities, so then he's not considered humble. He just is a low person. He doesn't have any qualities. But the issue is that he has qualities and still he's humble and doesn't think himself praiseworthy. And so far we're humble without being inwardly humble. He's just a faker, and on the contrary, it's just another way of being arrogant. The fact that he acts as a humble person and he's really not. And then, so therefore now he starts organizing the thoughts that a person has inwardly, his thoughts, his humble thoughts, and then later on, at the end, maybe we'll start it today even, he talks about how a humble person acts outwardly. And the thoughts that we had so far that a person should internalize in order to be humble is, first of all, that he has deficiencies. Even if he has many qualities, but he's not perfect, and he has many deficiencies also. And he doesn't forget about his deficiencies even when he's thinking about his qualities. When a person is like that, he doesn't consider himself praiseworthy. He only considers himself praiseworthy. It's only possible to do that if he temporarily at least ignores those deficiencies. But if he doesn't ignore it, so he can't feel himself praiseworthy, because he's thinking of his deficiencies simultaneously when he's thinking of his qualities, and he knows that he's not perfect, and therefore when he's not perfect he doesn't feel that he doesn't feel legitimate, he doesn't feel qualified that he should be considered praiseworthy. After that he said that even in the qualities themselves, that was one point about having deficiencies, that the deficiencies dampen and dim the glow of his worthiness, and therefore even though he has reasons to be worthy, but he's not perfect and not fitting for praise, kavod and tila. And the second point was that even within the qualities, not only the fact that he has deficiencies, but his qualities also is not enough reason to be considered praiseworthy. First of all, because it's not perfect in his quality either. Even if he has a very big quality, but it's not perfect. He gives an example of a person who's smart, even though he's very, very smart, but he also makes mistakes. And sometimes he needs other people to correct him, even though even sometimes people that are lower than him have to correct him, and his students themselves correct him. So how could he feel praiseworthy if he's lacking that perfection of that quality? The next thing he said was that it's natural to him. People have natural dispositions, that Hashem gave him wisdom or strength or beauty or riches, whatever it is, that it's something that he has, and he didn't do anything for it. Not the point yet that Hashem bestowed it upon him, that it's a gift, before we get to that, but just the fact that he has it, and the other person doesn't have it. It doesn't make him more praiseworthy. If the other person would have had it, so then he would have it. Same way that he says that a bird who flies, or an ox that is strong, is no reason that he should say, oh, I can fly, you can't fly. That's the way he is. That's your natural state, and that's his natural state. So that also would stop a person for praising himself for his qualities. The next point he said is that it's more or less an assignment, that he has a job. The fact that Hashem gave him a quality, it's not just to be kept for himself. On the contrary, he's enlisted that he should be using this for everybody else. So a person he gives all the examples of a chacham, gibor, asher, a person who's wise, he should give off his wisdom. He should use his wisdom in order to help other people, to teach other people wisdom. If he's rich, he should help those that need it. If he's powerful, he should use his power to help those that are oppressed. So it's not taking it for himself. The only reason he was given it is that he should use it for others. Also, this should take away his thoughts of arrogance and make him humble. Then afterwards, I don't recall if he brought these psukim. I don't recall if he read these psukim. He brings many psukim and Chazal to show that a person first has to be nemuchei ruach. He has to be shafal be'enoi. He has to be daito shvala. He has to be humble in the spirit. I think we did read this. So I'll just say it outside instead of reading it the text inside. That a person who has a straight mind, the sichlo yashar, so he realizes inwardly that he should be humble and that he doesn't have reason to consider himself praiseworthy. And he brings many psukim about David HaMelech, that he was shafal be'enoi, and how great are the nemuchei ruach, people who are the spirited is low. The low spirited is not people that are broken. We said that doesn't mean they're broken spirited in a way that he's a broken person, that he's depressed and broken. That doesn't mean that. It means that his gaiva is broken. He doesn't consider himself praiseworthy. That's the point of being a anav, the anvas hamachshava. And he brings up Ram, said, I am dust and ashes. Moshe said, what are we? David said, I'm a worm and not a man. All this is because a straight heart does not allow himself to be seduced into thinking that his qualities make him praiseworthy. Again, first of all, because he knows his deficiencies. His deficiencies stop him from that glow that he would radiate if he would be perfect. No, not perfect. There's this deficiencies, and then he says again. Well, we just finished saying that he didn't reach the epitome of that level, and now he says that the one more point that he didn't say yet is that it's God given. The fact that a person has qualities is that Hashem gave it to him. When Hashem gave it to him, it's even a different point that the person wouldn't attribute it to Hashem giving it to him. But you have it. You were born with it. He wasn't born with it. That's already a reason not to be considered praiseworthy. This is what you have. This is natural to you. But now he adds on another point that Hashem gave it to you. So now he says that the point is even embarrassing. The fact that a person is lacking and he has nothing on his own and he got a handout. So the same way that a poor man is embarrassed when he gets something because it's not him. He didn't do it. Hashem, someone gave it to him. So too, when a person has a quality, now he flips the coin on him. Not only shouldn't it be a reason to be arrogant, on the contrary, it should be a reason to make you shamed and humbled that you're being bestowed with presents that Hashem is showering upon you. So that's not a reason to be arrogant. On the contrary, it's a reason to be humbled. This is fascinating how he takes. Starts off with a thought that somebody had, then he's using it for arrogance, and now he takes the same thought and says, on the contrary, this itself should be a reason why you should be humbled. The fact that Hashem gave you and you don't have it on your own, so you got a handout. So we have already one point of deficiency and then another 4 points. Altogether he said 5 points, the way I see it, that he said about 5 points of why a person should not consider himself praiseworthy. One is because of deficiencies, then he said 4 points about the fact that even the quality also doesn't allow him to consider himself praiseworthy. One is because he's not perfect even in the quality, and that it's natural to him, and that it's an assignment that's supposed to be used for other people, and that is God-given. Hashem gave it to him, and therefore, since it's a present, so you should, on the contrary, we should even feel humbled because of it. We did finish the whole paragraph, and now I recall, we spoke about Nehemiah and Chizkiyahu, 2 great people, Hasidim Gedolim, but they were punished because they credited themselves for qualities that they had. They did have qualities, but since they credited themselves to the point that even asked in their own merit, so they were punished. Of course, at a slight punishment, on that level. But here it says that Nehemiah, that his book was not called on his name, because he credited himself, the fact that he asked Hashem in his own merit, so his book was not called on his name, it became annexed to Ezra, and the whole book of Ezra Nehemiah is called Ezra. Nowadays, the printers do call it Nehemiah. It was printed by Christian printers. That's how we have our Tanakh. It started from the Christian printers. I think Daniel Blumberg. Before that, it was called Ezra. The book is called Ezra. Chazal called the book Ezra, even though at halfway mark it starts with Divrei Nehemiah ben Chachalya, but the book is called one book. When you call 24 books, you'll get 25. If you're going to count it Ezra and Nehemiah separate, you have 25 books of Tanakh, but they're only 24.
This is with Shmuel being...
No, Shmuel, Aleph and Beis also, it's just that the printers, the Christian printers, when they pricked Shmuel and Divrei Hayamim and Malachim, it was a fat book, so they put it into 2 volumes and they called it Shmuel Aleph and Shmuel Beis. That's not Chazal at all, that's just a printer. And bigger than the Prakim, also from the Goyim, all the chapters, the Goyim invented them, and many times they did it. It's practical. You could say it's practical to be able to find the place, but sometimes the division is not true. The way they divided it is not smart. Sometimes
why did we use theirs?
Because they had the printing press. No chiddush, no halach, no reason. They had the printing press, and we weren't able to print on our own. And we used this form that they printed. There was somebody, I think his name Daniel Blumberg. Anybody familiar? Bloomberg, or something like that. He's the first printer. Gutenberg. Okay. And I think they even have the original ones of the first printing. Now it's collector's items. They have the Shas that was printed by. He printed many of this form that were very Sifrei Kodesh. I saw once from Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky that. What is that?
He was German.
Or Vienna, maybe, I'm not sure. Okay, Venice, I don't know. But it's you can find these things out simply. So the Prakim are not Jewish, and Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky said that if he'd be able to, he would change it. He would change it and not use it anymore. But some people have made an attempt to print Tanakh. They're doing it now. To print a Tanakh that's not, what is that?
Posen made.
From England. And they work on the whole Tanakh to make it according to the Jewish division of Sidorim. But
Nach, how does it get divided there?
How the Jews did it?
The Nach, not the inferior.
The way we have it now is the program was also from the Goyim.
Right, I'm saying how would they divide?
So there was I think that they have in the old Kisvei Yad and the old Jewish manuscripts, so they have a certain division. How you have in some divisions have it now also. The Samach, they have Samach, Sidorim. It's called Sidorim. There's a theory that's brought down in one of the Chumashim that it would help a person, if he goes according to that, he'd be able to finish the Tanakh every year. It's enough to finish the Tanakh every year. Besides Parsha Shavua, besides the Torah that you do on a weekly basis, if you learn a Seder a day, you'll finish the Tanakh every year. It sounds nice. Sounds like that could be a nice theory of what the division was. But the program that we have, the chapters are printed by the Goyim, and it's not authoritative at all. Jacob Kamneski said he would have liked to abolish it, but it's just not possible because all the references are always, in all this form, are all referring to that division. It could be nowadays with computers we can change it if it'd be an interest enough. I'm sure Mashiach's going to come. We're not going to use that division anymore. There are some where it's conspicuous that it shouldn't have been done that way. Sometimes you could argue, yes, not, but sometimes it's really against the Masorah of the division of the Parshiot, the way the indentations, it doesn't fit. Sometimes logically also we don't understand why they divided it that way. Okay, how do we get into the subject? Oh, it was Ezra Nehemiah. So one of those things is that they made the book of Nehemiah. There is no such book of Nehemiah because Chazal say that the whole book is annexed to Ezra. It's one big book of Ezra Nehemiah. And that was because he had attributed his credit to himself and he davened in his own merit. And Chizkiah also, it says that he davened that Hashem should save Yerushalayim in his merit, and Hashem answered him, I'm going to save it for David Lamani or Laman David Avdi, and that was like a pinch that he didn't get answered in his own merit, he got answered in the merit of others. And the Gemara says a person should not daven for his own merit, he should daven in the merit of others. Anybody that depends himself on his own merits, so they're going to depend him, even if they do save him, they're going to do it on the merit of others. So it's not a praiseworthy thing that a person should consider himself worthy of being saved or some favor being done to him in his own merit. He should ask for a man naschinam. He should ask for an undeserved, or in the merit of others, like we have sometimes chosavos. We ask in the merit of our forefathers, not in our own merit. So this was the subject of reasons that a person should not be arrogant. On the contrary, he should be humble. And even besides not blowing himself up more than he is on a simple level, which would be even a nucky, even back many levels earlier, a person is expected that he shouldn't make himself more than he really is. A person on this level, he realizes that even the qualities which l'chorah he does have, also, if he's going to take credit for it, he's really blowing himself more than he really deserves. He has deficiencies, and he's not perfect, and Hashem, even in this quality, and it's his nature, and it's supposed to be used to give to others. He's just given it as a deposit that he should be taking care of others, and that it's God-given. Hashem gave it to him, and therefore he should feel embarrassed and shamed, not arrogant. Just to make one point before we go further, is that some of these reasons would also apply to a person's bechira, but some of them would not. Means, in other words, there are some qualities people have that is not their free choice. It wasn't their free choice. It wasn't their merit at all, because they were given it, like wisdom. A person was given wisdom. A person was not given wisdom that Hashem gave to him. Surely a person is included here that he has no reason to feel that he did anything. But there is an area of bechira. We're in this world only because of our free choice, that Hashem gives us a evil inclination and a good inclination, and a person makes a decision. So over there, you might say that he did do something. Over there, he's the one who did it. So some of these reasons would apply, some of them wouldn't. Means, if we go through the list, does he have other deficiencies? Yes, he has deficiencies. Even within his bechira also, he has deficiencies. Even if in one area he's doing well in his bechira choices, but in others he's not. So that would take down his claim to praiseworthiness. And is he perfect in his bechira? Also, he's not perfect in his bechira. Even in the areas where he is successful. Also, he can't claim that he's perfect. He probably would agree that he's not perfect, even in the quality that he claims. But the other point that he says that it's his nature, so there it won't be his nature. Bechira is not his nature. That's something that he actually did. And did Hashem give it to him? Hashem didn't give it to him either. Hashem gave him. This is your call. You call the shots now. So Hashem gave him many qualities, but then Hashem says that now this is the area of your free choice. So over there, some of the reasons would apply, that he shouldn't be arrogant. Some of them would not apply. Just to point out, there's a famous Igeres Ramban, the letter of the Ramban he wrote to his son. and he tells him one of the main issues there is about being humble. And he doesn't say the reason that the Mesil Shom says, he just says a different reason, just to point out what it is, and maybe why the Mesil Shom doesn't say it like that. The point that, Shalom Aleichem, welcome back. Good to see you. So, the point that the Ramban says in this famous letter, Igeras Ramban, is that you never know who's bigger. Even if you might seemingly outwardly seem on a higher level than others, but you don't know. Let's say you're wiser, but it could be on the contrary, your wisdom is held against you because the other person was ignorant, so he doesn't know. So his mistakes are excused, but your mistakes are not excused because you should have known better. Or a person is wealthy, so he gives, let's say, he's very generous with his money, but maybe not according to the level that he should be. So a person who even is giving less, but he's doing better than you because according to what he, proportionately to what he should be giving, maybe he's giving more than you. That's the reason that the Ramban says you never know who's better, even if you outwardly seem more worthy than others, but you don't know. But there's a difficulty with that Ramban because it's only ala safek. It's only maybe. He's not saying absolute thing. He's just saying maybe, maybe not. Maybe each person's saying to the other one. Two people looking at each other. Maybe you're greater. Maybe you're greater. But everything's been a suffix. Maybe. But the reason that the Mesil Shom says, I'm not saying that it's not a true reason either. It's also a truth, but it's only on a suffix. But let's say it won't count for Moshe Rabbeinu over there. Moshe Rabbeinu, Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu that you're the greatest. The whole basi ne'amanu, and he had to believe it, or else he's going to be kofar b'toras Moshe. He surely has to believe. Vayish Moshe anav mod mikol adam ashal pnei adama. The whole basi ne'amanu. Moshe knew that he's the man, and it also says that he's the biggest anav.
We don't have to believe it also. If the Rebbeinu said it to Moshe Rabbeinu.
Yeah, surely, yeah, but I'm saying, yeah, we have to believe it surely, but I'm saying even Moshe Rabbeinu had to believe it. If he didn't believe it, so he believed it. He knew that he's the biggest dumb man, Eved, V'chol Beis Yinamanu. And with all that, he's also the biggest Anav. You have to believe that also, that he's the biggest Anav. So here you have Moshe Rabbeinu writing, V'yesh Moshe Anav Mod Mikol Adam Ashal Pnei Adama. He's the biggest humble man on earth. And he's an Anav. After knowing that, he's an Anav also. So that the Raman wouldn't account for that kind of humility. How could he be humble? He knows that he's the greatest. With the Bechira, with everything, he's the greatest of all men. So the Mesil Shom's reasons do apply. That even when a person is comparing himself to absolute perfection, so he knows that he has deficiencies and things that Hashem gave him that are not his, and it's for an assignment, it's for a job. We said one more point that the Mesil Shom doesn't say. We're chazering some points that have come up the past couple of weeks, that when a person feels that he's standing before Hashem, that itself is also a reason to be humble. It includes many of these reasons, but to talk about the first reason about a person who has any deficiency is not praiseworthy. It means the fact that he has deficiency, it dims and dampens his quality. Another way of saying that is that when a person is standing before Hashem, so no matter how great he might be, but he feels like a worm and like a dust and ashes and like nothing, because even though he might be greater than the person he's comparing himself to, but if he doesn't forget about Hashem, so what comparison is there? Yes, it's like two ants that are fighting. Who's the bigger ant? 3 times bigger than you, and then there's an elephant that walks by, so then everyone's quiet. He's 3 times bigger than the other ant. That's all relative. But if you talk about real greatness, so then it doesn't even come to the picture. So when the mashal that would be a mashal. The nimshal would be that when a person considers himself in the presence of Hashem without forgetting Hashem, so then he can't consider himself great, even in contrast to somebody else, even though he knows he's bigger than everybody else. The big ant knows that he's bigger than the small ant. But I have a question. But that doesn't make him feel haughty and arrogant and praiseworthy because he's comparing himself to absolute perfection. The pasuk says, you're going to become arrogant and you're going to forget Hashem. So some Mefarshim explain that that's the only way to get haughty. You can't be arrogant if you think about Hashem. The only way to be arrogant is by forgetting about Hashem. This reason, because when a person is in the presence of Hashem, comparing himself to absolute perfection, so he doesn't feel his qualities are praiseworthy, even though he knows that he's bigger than the next person. And we said that the person who knows that he has a better quality, sometimes he has to act the position. If he's a man of authority or a man of power, a man of wisdom, he has to sit in the position of authority because he is more than those that are less. But still, he doesn't consider himself praiseworthy be'etzem inherently because he's comparing himself to Hashem, and that already makes humility. So Moshe Rabbeinu, who is the humblest of all men is because he was always in the presence of Hashem, and that's why, on the contrary, it wasn't the reason to make him arrogant. Being in the presence of Hashem was what made him humble the whole time. So in the text, that's where, as far as we got, and now we're finishing up. This is going to finish up the first part of this parak about Anvas HaMachshava. V'amnam kol zeh hu mima sheroy lahoshev alibo mi sheyeh k'Avraham k'Moshe k'Aaron k'David u'shar chasidim shezacharnu. All these reasons that we said, these are good answers for those who are so great, like Avraham, Moshe. These are the examples he brought before. Avraham said, "I'm dust and ashes." Moshe and Aaron said, "What are we?" David said, "I'm a worm." And the other Hasidim we mentioned, which will be Nehemiah and Chizkiyahu. But he says we don't have to be so complicated. That we should be humble. He says it's much simpler. When a person is very, very great, he has to come on to all these novel new chidushim, that he also should be humble. But when a person has so many deficiencies that we have, and our qualities are nothing to brag about in the first place, so it's much easier to be humble. You just have to be a little bit truthful. That's how he ends off. We're the orphans of the orphans. We don't need all of this big lumdus. We have many, many deficiencies. You don't have to have a deep study to see our lowliness. And anybody that's going to think that he's worthy, he's just not looking in the mirror. Like it's just take the facts the way they are. You don't have to have all these lumduses. Just take the actual deficiencies, and you see that our milas are not qualities. And all of our wisdom is like nothing, even if we're very smart in comparison to other people of our generation. If you look at our generation alone, let's say he's talking to the wisest of the generation. So then, a person who is the wisest of his generation, so then you might say that he has to have all these earlier reasons to be humble. But he says, why are you just comparing yourself to this generation? Compare yourself to a few generations back. So even the smartest of our generation is only of the students of the earlier generations. We should realize this truthfully, and we shouldn't be arrogant needlessly. Means it's really chinam, it's really for nothing. It's a needless arrogance, that's baseless arrogance. We should realize that our knowledge and wisdom is very weak. We have a lot of foolishness and we make a lot of mistakes. What we do know is only very, very little. He's all talking within the mashal of wisdom. He took wisdom as the example of a reason to be haughty. He could have taken other qualities also, but he says that wisdom is the main quality that people attribute to themselves because it's in their nobler faculties. If he has strong muscles, okay, but if he has a strong mind, so that's more noble, and people attribute it to themselves more. So he says that that quality, which is the greatest of all, in our generation, it's very easy. Everyone shouldn't have to take such a big dose, such a strong medication in order to be humble. A small dose of it should already do enough, because we don't have so much to be arrogant for in the first place. So it's not fitting to us, not appropriate to elevate ourselves above others at all. We're just fitting for us humiliation and lowliness, and that goes without saying. So with this he finishes the first part of his parak, of this chapter, which is talking about Anvas HaMachshava, the mental attitudes of humility, that a person has to first be humble in his mind. He has to be inwardly humble. And these are the thoughts that a person should integrate in order to have that mental attitude. And now he goes on to the second part, which is Anvas HaMaisa, which means that a person also has to act humbly also. It's not enough, it seems, that it's not enough just to have those inward thoughts. We would think that's enough. Once he has that, so then he's humble. So he says there is importance to acting humbly outwardly, the outward expression of it. And it's a very interesting point, because we would think that whatever follows is already natural. Once he did internalize the thoughts of humility, so we would think that any outward expression is going to be already memela, it's going to be automatic, because if that's what he thinks of himself, he doesn't think of himself praiseworthy, so then he's going to act so. But it seems, I'm just suggesting that it seems that a person has to work on that also. He has to work on applying his inward humility to have outward expression, that he has to also act humbly. And now he's going to tell us 4 categories of humble acts, how a person acts. But he warned us again that a person shouldn't work on Chelak Beis before Chelak Aleph. If a person, I didn't say it accurately, that he shouldn't work on it first. He shouldn't work on it only. That's more accurate. He shouldn't just work on his outward humility without working on his inward humility, because that's just going to create a bigger balgaiva, because he's really arrogant inside and he's just arrogant with his humility. He's going to say, I'm also the humblest of all. Besides all my other qualities, I'm also the most humble. So he says that the person, he warned about that back in Gaiva, and he again recalled it in the beginning of this parak. He said that a person is only going to be an anav b'maaseh if he's only going to be an outward humble person, then it's a dangerous thing. He says it's the worst of all. Asher ein ba'olam ram behem, nothing worse than that. So a person should not only work on chelik beis. If anything, if he has a choice of one of the two, he should only work on his inward humility. Even if he'll never get to becoming humble outwardly. But if a person is only going to work on the outward humility, then it's a chisaron. It's an actual bad thing if a person only is humble outwardly and his actions are not really truly humble. But he does say that there's a quality, there's a mila of being outwardly humble also, if you have inward humbleness. And now he's going to go on to tell us 4 categories of expression of humility. That when a person is humble, there are going to be 4 categories of expression, how it comes out. Till now we've spoken about the thoughts of humility, humble thoughts. So now we're going to speak about humility of actions. He divides that subdivisions into 4 parts. So again, the big division is going to be thoughts and actions, and now the actions are subdivided into 4 categories. And he first names them out, he enumerates them, then later on he's going to elaborate about each one. Number 2 is bisvol helbonos. Number 3 is bisno harabonos uvroch min hakavod, and number 4 is bechalok kavod lakol. Translation: Hisnai gatzmo b'shiflus means a general attitude in his outward actions. Anybody have a better translation than that? How do they translate these words? Hisnai gatzmo b'shiflus. Any translation? No. Okay. It means that his mannerisms, I would say mannerisms maybe is a good word, that his mannerisms are humble mannerisms. And he'll explain that also at length when he's going to now explain it soon.
Conducting oneself with lowliness.
Okay, conducting oneself. Okay, that's it, conducting oneself.
Not an arrogance.
Not an arrogance, a way of conducting oneself. Which the whole thing is called anvasamaisa. The whole disposition. Good. Okay, a humble disposition, which means outwardly. Yeah. So the whole issue is called anvasamaisa. But this is a disposition, a mannerism, the way he conducts himself, which he's going to explain, by the way, what he means to say. The second one is that he's able to tolerate insult. That a humble person is able to tolerate insult. Lisbol elbonot. Elbon means insult, and lisbol means to tolerate. He's able to tolerate insult. And the third one is that he hates authority, hates to be authority. He doesn't want to be in a position of authority, and including that he runs away from honor. He runs away from the limelight. He doesn't want honor. And the fourth one is that he honors others. These are all the manifestations of his humility. When a person is humble, this is what's going to happen. Maybe he has to work on it specifically. He said maybe it doesn't come automatically. A person has to apply his attitudes to his actions. But a proper and appropriate application would be that his disposition becomes a humble one, and that he's able to tolerate insult, which really means even if it is insulting to him, not that they treat him according to what he deserves. They deserve him less. They're treating him less than he really deserves. After he knows he's not deserving of praise, but he still knows how much he is in relation to others, and they're not treating him like that. They're treating him lower than he really deserves, and he's going to be able to tolerate that. And the third one is that he doesn't want to be above other people. Sno harabbanut. The word rabbanus usually nowadays is used as the rabbinate, but it doesn't only mean that. It mees any kind of an authority over others is called rabbanus. It talks about Yosef. The word rabbanus has a broader how does it say by Korach? They told Moshe Rabbeinu, Ki sistarer oleinu gam historer. So the Targum over there says his Rav Ravta. The word of to be Rav means to be elevated over somebody. So people who are arrogant, they like to be over others. They like to have authority over others, to be controlling and authoritative. And a person who is humble, he doesn't like that. Sometimes he has to. It doesn't mean that he doesn't ever do it. Sometimes if there's a need for it, he'll take the position. Like it says, if there's nobody else taking the lead, you got to take the lead. But he doesn't enjoy it. He has to take the lead sometimes, but he's not supposed to enjoy the fact that he's the leader. And running away from honor, that's included in the same subject. And number 4 is that he honors others. He doesn't have difficulty to honor other people. A person who's humble will honor others. A person who's arrogant, on the contrary, is not going to honor others. So, yeah, sure.
he says in number 4 that you're supposed to honor others.
Right.
So you're trying to honor a person. A person say, "What are you doing to me? I'm trying to be humble, and you're honoring. What are you doing? I'm trying to follow this Yeshua. Leave me alone."
So I think that the person who's getting honored, sometimes he's going to say that if he's doing it undeservedly, if he's trying to say it, if he's going to if he's going to apply to him qualities that he really doesn't deserve, he's going to say so. He'll say so. But if he's going to say the qualities that he did deserve, the quality that he did earn, but he's thinking about all of the other chesronos and that he hasn't reached perfection in this and that it's God-given, all these chesronos that he's going through his mind, it is true. But the other person is saying, that's not my business. I don't have to think about your deficiencies. That's not my issue. I don't have to think that it was God-given. It's true, but you're a God-given quality.
What is his intention in saying honor others?
So I think he's going to explain himself at length, but at this point, before we get to what he says, I would understand that there is a necessity to honor people because that's how you give value to any quality that exists. When you have a room or a community or a household, any kind of a group of people, in order to express your value for any quality, you have to show where it fits in the gradation of things. Where does it fit into the picture? Who's the smartest in the community? So if he's not honored as such, then he doesn't fit into the picture. His quality is not honor. Is not shining. It isn't there. It isn't. It's being suppressed. So the importance of giving honor to others means to honor each thing the way that it deserves. And a person who's humble doesn't have difficulty in doing that. He says this person deserves this much honor, this person, and some people even more than him.
What I'm trying to get at is normally in education, you want to praise others, encourage them to build their self-esteem.
So I don't think that's the point, Dafka. You're saying that people do look at it like that, but I'm not sure if that's the point. Is the point of giving honor in order to make people feel good? Is that the point of honor? So I don't know if that's the point. I'm questioning that the point of honor is in order to express value where it belongs. He's
talking about encouragement.
So it's equivalent, or no? The point is to make somebody feel good. When you're saying to encourage somebody, it means I want to make him feel good. That a person should know his value.
Praising what? Hey, you solved that problem. You're only 7 years old. Congratulations. Everything is true, and the person feels good.
Right, that's true. And you're telling him that he can do it again. You've solved this. You can go on to be successful.
Yeah.
Yes, it isn't your purpose now that he should realize what he is in contrast to perfection. That's not your point. You just want to encourage him that he could go on and be successful. But a person, and it's not a bad midah that he should know what he's doing. The people who need encouragement means that they don't realize their value. If a person thinks that he's lowly, that doesn't make him humble. We said that in the contrary. The Ramchal says an ironic point, that if a person thinks he doesn't have a quality, he's not humble. He's just a lowly person. The definition of a humble person means that he knows he has qualities, and still he doesn't feel that he's praiseworthy, doesn't deserve praise because of other reasons. But a person that doesn't realize his qualities, so he has a problem. He doesn't know the tools that Hashem gave him, and you might say that he's an ingrateful person, a person that has, let's say Hashem gave him riches, and he denies it to others, he denies it to himself. Hashem gave him wisdom, Hashem gave him all kinds of talents, and he says, no, I can't do anything, I'm a good for nothing. So he's a kafir tova, he's an ingrateful person. Hashem gave him so many blessings, and he doesn't appreciate it. So people who have that problem, surely they need encouragement, that they should know the qualities that they have. Now you want to know, should they not realize that Hashem gave it to them? Yes, but that's not always the teacher's job. It depends which age. Surely to the 7-year-old, that's not his subject yet. First he has to know that he has the qualities. But as he gets older, and then he starts thinking that he's such a great present to humanity, and so he has to realize his shortcomings also, and that he's not perfect, and he shouldn't have reason to be arrogant over anybody else. They don't contradict each other. I think that everything is true. What do you say?
I'm just saying, arrogance didn't hurt Trump anything. Humble, he would not be president.
The difference is that kavod just means to put people in the right.
And the right.
The father should have kavod. If Moshe Rabbeinu was the biggest honor, but still, if his kids wouldn't give him the kavod that he's the father in the house, then
so he wouldn't be the father in the house.
Right.
And in any position, Moshe Rabbeinu being leader of Am Yisrael, also he needed.
He had to give his father whatever respect his father deserved.
So we're saying that kavod, we didn't see it inside yet, but he's going to talk about kavod lachalok, kavod lakol. You're saying that it means that they're putting each person in their position that they deserve. And now you want to know, and even though I'm the greatest of the position, let's say of those that are present, but now that doesn't make me forget that even though I'm smarter than everybody else, but I have deficiencies, and my perfection is not, my wisdom is very limited, and like Hashem gave, and it's given, it's my nature, and it's my assignment, and Hashem gave it to me even though I don't deserve it. All these things are true, and it's not a contradiction to. And the person himself also, not only to honor others, he also realizes his position that he's supposed to be taken. He has the ability to tolerate insult if someone does insult him, but he does know his position in relation to others. But he also doesn't forget about his relation to perfection, and he doesn't forget about his deficiencies. So I don't think that it contradicts each other. And as far as people that are arrogant and we see them getting ahead in life, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're successful. It means in the point that he got, it helped him, it didn't help him. Maybe Hashem would have made him to be the president anyway, even without the arrogance, whatever you think. But it doesn't prove if something is a good thing or not. The Gemara says chutzpah is malchusa b'lotaga. The Gemara says that chutzpah is kingship without a crown. It means that it also gets people places. But the Gemara is not praising it. It's as if he has power that's unauthorized power. That chutzpah gets him places. But on the contrary, the Gemara is going to say that it's a bad thing. But in this world, sometimes it will get him places. That Geneva also, you might say, they say crime never pays, but you don't always see it. Sometimes it seems that it did get someplace, but in the long run, it's not going to pay. And so surely the chutzpah is not going to pay in the long run. Azos is a bad thing, but the Gemara describes sometimes how it looks in the world that this got him ahead. So if you see somebody that his arrogance seems to get him ahead, it's not going to be a proof that it's a worthy attribute.
It's not worthy for most of us, but Trump is different. He got it to an extreme, and he was needed to be president. I don't know how long he's going to last.
Okay, so this was just the introduction of the new subject called Anvas HaMaisa. Just to dip in a few minutes, just to dump into it. Ha'echad hu v'esnag v'sheflus. Humble disposition, the way he acts, his outward actions. This should be in his speech, in the way that he walks, in the place that he sits, and in all of his movements, all of his mannerisms. And he goes on to bring now Chazal of each of these issues, that there's a difference between a person who's humble and a person who's arrogant. Just to dip into the subject, and we'll start again from this part 2 about Anvas HaMaisa. Yashikawach.
Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back to today's Daf Yomi Shabbos Daf Ayin Gimel. We're 9 lines from the top. Says the Gemara. Itma, we learned. Now we are continuing our discussion regarding the halacha of misasik. Misasik means preoccupation. We learned from a pasuk. The pasuk says, Asher chata ba. One must have intention, kavana, to perform this maisa, this act of isser, in order to be liable, in order to bring a chatas. And we exclude a case of misasik. If one is preoccupied with an activity which is unrelated to this malacha, to this isser, in that case, he is pater. This actually is the reason why we walk on the street on Shabbos without fear, without concern of perhaps stepping on a bug and killing it, because we're busy walking. We're preoccupied with the activity of walking. We have no intent or purpose in stepping on any bugs along the way. So there's no kavana, there's no intention, there is no involvement even in that type of activity. He's preoccupied with simply walking on the street. So in this case, he is pater. The Gemara will give us 2 examples, in addition to the example we had yesterday on the Fine Bays, of misasik, and actually there'll be machlekes, Abaye and Rava, to what extent do we apply this principle? Itma, we learned. Niskaven lizrek shtay. If one had kavana to throw an item 2 amis in Rosh Hashanah, v'zarak arba, but somehow it ended up being thrown 4 amis, which is the shiur of the malacha of Eitzah in Rosh Hashanah. So his kavana was, his intention was to do something very small, which does not have the status of a malacha of Eitzah. He was involved in a non-malacha activity. It was only a zrika of 2 amis, but it ended up flying 4 amis. Rav Amar pater. This is considered to be a misasik, because he wasn't involved in an activity which constitutes a malacha on Shabbos. Abaya Amar Chayiv. He is Chayiv. He's not a misasik, because he intended on throwing, and he did throw. So what if he intended on throwing merely 2 amas, and it ended up flying 4 amas? But his kavanah was to do this maisa, this act of zrika. Therefore, he's not a misasik. He's not preoccupied with something else entirely different. He's regarded as a shoygeg, because he had no kavanah to do the malacha. He only wanted to throw 2 amas. So he's a shoygeg, and he needs to bring a chatas. Explains the Gemara. Rav Amar Potter. Why? The loika mechavan lezrika de arba, because he had no intention of doing an act of zrikas arba amas. It's regarded as an entirely different type of act, an act which is regarded as a malacha. He had kavanah merely to throw 2 amas, which is an entirely different activity. Therefore, he's a masasik. Abai Amar Chayiv. Doka mechavan lezrika ba'alma. At the end of the day, he had a kavanah to throw. That's all that counts. His machshava was to throw an item, to do a zrika, and he did throw the item. So although he intended on throwing merely 2 amas, and it ended up flying 4 amas, he's not regarded as a masasik. He is a shoygig and needs to bring a chatas. Another example of a masasik, where there will be machlokes Abai v'Rava. Kosavar shesayachid, he figures he was throwing in Rosh Hashanah. So he mistakenly thought that he was in a private domain. V'nim says Shusarabim. It turned out that he was throwing in Rosh Hashanah. Here too, Rava says a Rav Amar Potter, because his involvement was with a non-malach activity. Sure, he was throwing, he was carrying, but he figured he was doing in Rosh Hashanah. This is a maisa, an activity unrelated to malacha. Therefore, he's regarded as a masasik. V'Abai Amar Chayev. Here too, Abai says no, he's Chayev. Explains the Gemara. Rav Amar Potter Doloi Mechavan Lezrika Di Surah, because he had no intention of doing a zrika, which is regarded as a malacha. He intended on throwing, sure, but it is shesayachet. V'Abai Amar Chayev Doka Mechavan Lezrika Ba'alma. At the end of the day, he had kavanah to do this physical activity, to do this ma'aseh zrika. So, halachically speaking, it is not regarded as a ma'aseh which has the properties, the qualifications of malacha. Nevertheless, we don't look at the halachic side of it. We look at the practical side of it. He had a kavanah. He intended to throw something, and he did throw it, and ended up as a malacha. This is not regarded as a masasik, and therefore he's chayiv. Let's perhaps take a look at Rashi, who explains Rava's shita. This is Rashi, 16 lines from the top. The Rashi begins with the words, this is Rava speaking. Rava maintains that this is different, because he had no kavanah. This is different than an ordinary shaygig, because he had no kavanah to do a zrika of Isser, a zrika which is regarded as a malacha. He simply intended on throwing 2 amas, or throwing in Rosh Hashanah. So it's different than a case where one intends on doing the Maisa, which is regarded as a malacha, but it was a shaygig. For instance, Rashi says, "V'yeh shaygig b'Shabbos, oy b'malacha." So he intended on doing this specific act, which is considered to be a Maisa malacha, but the inadvertence, the shgaga, related to Shabbos. He was unaware today is Shabbos. Oy b'malacha. He was unaware that this is regarded as a malacha of Isser. So that's ordinarily speaking. That's your typical shgaga. Aval zeh, but in our case, Eilu l'shagig, loy b'Shabbos, v'loy b'malachis. He isn't the person who's unaware that today is Shabbos, or that this is a malacha. Ela misasik, v'davar echad shel heter. Rather, he's a fellow who is being busy now with something which is mutter. He's throwing something 2 amas. He's throwing something in Rosh Hashanah, v'oso b'yad Isser, and it somehow resulted in an Isser. He is regarded as a misasik, and therefore is not a shaygig, and no chatas is required. So these 2 cases of Abai v'Rava is an addition. These 2 cases are in addition to the initial machlekes we had in Daf Ayin Beis, with the case of an example where a person had the intention to be chaytich, an item which is talish, to cut a tomato which was already off the ground. So you intended on cutting, but cutting what? Something which was already detached. Rava says he's a masasik. He's involved in a non-malacha activity. It's unrelated to malacha, because halachically speaking, this ma'aseh that he intends on performing doesn't really configure as a ma'aseh malacha. It doesn't have the nature of a ma'aseh malacha, and therefore it's considered as though he's preoccupied with something else, and he's patur. According to Abaye, at the end of the day, he had a kavanah to cut, to do a maaseh chaticha, and he indeed did cut. So although his kavanah was to cut something which was talish, which was detached, and he ended up cutting something off the ground, something mechubar, it's regarded as a shgaga, not as a masasik. Because apparently, according to Abaye, we look at the practical side of things. He intended on cutting, and he did cut. Therefore, it's not a masasik. According to Rava, we focus more on the halachic aspect of things. He intended on being involved in something which doesn't conform, halachically speaking, to an act of malacha. Therefore, he's a masasik. So you have a total of 3 examples. We have this case, and we have the other 2 cases that we just discussed about the zrika. Says the Gemara, why do we have to have all 3 cases to present the machlekes of Abaye Rava? But tzricha says, well, we need them all. Each one has a chiddush. The ashminik hamaisa, because if we would only know the first case, the case of the cutting, Vahu kama Rava, perhaps over there, I would think that Rava holds that's called a masasik. Why? The haloika mechaven l'chaticha de'isura, because he had no intention on doing a chaticha, a cutting of malacha of isur. He simply intended on cutting something off the ground, something which was already talish. Therefore, it's a masasik. Avol niskaven lizar shtayim v'zarak arba. However, in our case, we intended on throwing an item, a chayfetz, 2 amas in Rishus Rabim, and he ended up throwing 4 amas. Perhaps over there I would think there's a difference. The difference between the first case. Over here, perhaps, it's not a masasik. Why? Explains the Gemara. The arba below tarti lo mizrukale. Within the number 4 is included the number 2. So when he ended up throwing 4 amas, included in that zrika of dalad amas is certainly a zrika of 2 amas. So his machshava, his intention, his plan was indeed fulfilled. It was niskayim machshavtei. It was nasis machshavtei. When it ended up flying 4 amas, his plan was fulfilled. Perhaps over here, Rava would have agreed to Abaye that this is not regarded as a masasik. He ended up fulfilling his initial plan. Perhaps in this case, he's chayiv. Therefore, we need to learn, that even in this case, Rava disagrees. He holds it's called a masasik. V'yashmina baha. Now, if the Gemara would simply tell us this case, I would say first and second case, and not the third case of the Rishus Hayachid and Rishus Rabim. Perhaps I would find a distinction, a chiluk. I would say as follows: V'yashmina baha. So if we would only have this case of the zrika of 2 and 4 amas, but not the other case of the Rishus Hayachid and Rishus Rabim, v'ho kama Rava. Perhaps I would think that in this case, indeed, Rava maintains it's a masasik, v'halaka mechaven l'zrika de'arba, because he intended on throwing merely 2 amas. He had no machshava, no plan of throwing a zrika of 4 amas. So the 4 amas zrika, this entity called a 4 amas zrika, was totally beyond him. Therefore, it's regarded as a masasik. It wasn't what he was involved in. Avoka savar rishus hayachid v'nimtza rishus harabim. But in the case where he's throwing 4 amas, he's doing this 4 amas zrika, but he thinks he's in rishus hayachid, and that's mutter. So in his mind, he's throwing 4 amas in rishus hayachid v'nimtza rishus harabim. It turns out that he was actually in rishus harabim. Perhaps in this case, the mechaven lezrika de'arba, since even in his mind, what was he trying to do? He was trying to do this type of activity, this type of ma'aseh of a zrika of 4 amas. Okay, he thought it was Rishus Hayachid and being Rishus Rabim. That's a side detail. Perhaps in this case, Rabbi would agree to Abaye that yes, we regard his involvement as a full involvement in this malacha. It's not like he was involved in something else. He was misasek, preoccupied with a activity which was totally unrelated to the malacha. No, he was involved in this form of ma'aseh, in the ma'aseh of zrika of the aldamas. Okay, so he mistook the Rishus Rabim for Rishus Hayachid. Perhaps that's a shogeg. Perhaps in this case, Rav agrees to Abaye that it's a shogeg tzricha. The Gemara needs to inform us, no, that machlokes is in all three cases. So in summary, we have three cases. That there's a machlokes between Abaye and Rava. Abaye regards them as shogeg. Rava says misasik. We have number one, niskaven lachtich tolish. He intended on cutting something which was detached, and he ended up cutting something off the ground. We have the case where he intended on throwing something 2 amas in Rishus Harabim, and he ended up throwing 4. And finally, the case where he intended on throwing 4 amas in Rishus Hayachid, and he ended up really throwing it in Rishus Harabim. Continues the Gemara Tanan, we learned in the Mishnah. Avos malachis arboim mechasar achas. So this is the Mishnah coming up very soon. We have a total of 39 avos malachis arboim chasar achas, 40 minus 1. Now, the obvious question is, why does the Mishnah need to present us with a number? Let's take a look at the Mishnah. We'll see the 39. Why does the Mishnah need to cite the number? What is the point of giving us the minyan, the number? The Mishnah here is indicating something to us. If a person were to perform all those activities, all those malachas, in one helim, in one lapse of awareness, in one uninterrupted period of forgetfulness, of unawareness. So he did malacha after malacha after malacha until he got to 39, and only then afterwards realized, 1 second, I'm doing malachas, I'm doing yisurim. So all of them will perform together. Chayav al kol achas v'achas. He will bring a carbon for each one separately. Why? Because we know that when a person is aware of Shabbos, he knows today is Shabbos, but is unaware that these are regarded as malachas. In that case, the shkaga, the unawareness, is separated, is applied to each malacha independently, and requires a separate chatas. Says the Gemara, how can we find a situation where a person is totally unaware of all those 39 malachas? Nevertheless, he knows that today is Shabbos. If he doesn't know that these are malachas, he doesn't know that Shabbos entails any malachas, any yisurim, why in his mind is it Shabbos? In what way is Shabbos different than Friday? So how can we say that this person is aware of Shabbos, of the significance of Shabbos? Shabbos carries weight to him, but nonetheless he's unaware of any malachas. So let's explore this. It's all well according to Abaye, the Omar ki haygav nechayev, who says that in a case where a person intended on doing a small portion of a malacha, for instance, throwing 2 amas instead of 4, so the shear is 4 amas, but his machshava was to only throw 2 amas. Abaye maintains, in this case, it is shaygig and it's chayiv. He needs to bring a chatas. So according to Abaye, we can understand the halacha in this Mishnah, the halacha of the 39 malachas. Abaye the Omar. It's all well and understood according to Abaye, who says that if one intended on doing a partial malacha and subsequently did the full malacha, he is chayiv. It's regarded as a shogeg and not as a mesasik. Mishkachasla, we can apply this concept, this halacha of the Mishnah, the liability to all 39. Mishkachasla the yada the isura. He knows about the Isura de Shabbos. V'yadala Isur Malachis. V'katav b'shiurim. This fellow is fully aware of the fact that today is Shabbos. He knows that Shabbos entails many Isurim. There are many Malachis involved in Shabbos. So he's fully aware. So why then is he a shogeg? Why do we say that he did all these 39 Malachis? He's a shogeg on all of them. He needs to make 39 karbanos. In what way is he a shogeg if he's fully aware of Shabbos and the malachas? V'katav b'shiurim. His mistake simply was regarding shear, regarding the measure, regarding the amount, meaning he intended on throwing 2 amas, and somehow he ended up throwing 4 amas. So he knew the facts. He was aware of Shabbos. He knows that carrying or throwing is an isser. He also knows that the malacha of Eitzah involves 4 amas. So he intended on merely doing 2 amas, and somehow he ended up doing 4 amas. In this case, he's a shogeg, and he brings a carbon. So this concept can be applied to all 39 malachis. He knows Shabbos, he knows those malachis, and he intends on doing only the partial malacha, which according to Abaye results in a chiyuv chatas. So once again, according to Abaye, we can present the halacha of this Mishnah in very clear terms. He knows that it's Shabbos. He's aware of the significance of these malachis. He actually knows the details, the halachic framework of those malachis. And he doesn't intend on doing the shir. He intends on doing part of the shir, part of the malacha. Therefore, he's a shoygig. He needs to bring a chatas. So if he does this, if this applies to all 39 malachis, behelam echad, this results in 39 chiyuvim. Ela l'rav the amar pata. However, according to Rav, who holds that if one intended on only doing a partial malacha, and somehow it resulted in him doing the full malacha, he's regarded as a misasik. He's preoccupied. He was involved in a non-malach activity. It's not a shoygig. There's no chatas here. If so, hey chimesh kachas lo. How could you find me a case where a person will perform all 39 malachis behelim echad in a lapse of awareness, bishgaga, unaware, and needs to bring 39 karbanis? How's it possible according to Rav? Says the Gemara, b'shigigas bezadin Shabbos. Apparently, it is bezadin Shabbos. He's deliberate regarding Shabbos. He knows, he's aware of the concept of Shabbos, that today is Shabbos. V'shigeres malachis, but unaware regarding the malachis. Only in that case can this person be liable to 39 chatois, 39 separate chiyuvim for the 39 separate shgagas. But how can we find the situation according to Rav, where a person is unaware of all the malachas, but is still aware of Shabbos? If he's unaware of the malachas, then that means that equals unawareness about Shabbos, because in what way is Shabbos significant to him? So how can we find a situation according to Rav? Because once again, Rav maintains that if one were to have a kavanah intention to do a partial malacha, and it resulted in doing a full malacha, he's regarded as a misasik. So we can't say that is the example, that is the case of the Mishnah there. Therefore, let's find a case where, according to Rava, we can have a situation where a person will be chayiv 39 malachis. How is that possible? It says, so it works well if he follows Shitas of Yochanan, who tells us what are the parameters of a shoygig. What does it mean when we say a person is a shoygig, is unaware? To what extent does he need to be unaware? Says the Gemara, if we follow Rav Yochanan, who tells us the Amar, kiman sheshagag bekaris, afal pi shehezed belav, that if a person is unaware of the severity, he's unaware of the karis penalty associated with Navera, that is already regarded as a shoygig. Even though afal pi shehezed belav, even if he's fully aware of the isser, of the lav, which prohibits doing this Avera, since he's unaware of the severity, to what extent this Avera carries a penalty of karis, he's regarded as a shoygig. Says the Gemara, if that's the case, if we follow Rav Yochanan Shita, then we can understand this halacha, mishkachasla. We can find a case, the yadalo the Shabbos belav. How is he aware about Shabbos, but unaware of the malachis? Because he's unaware of the fact that those malachis entail a oynish of karis. That is sufficient to deem him a shoygig. And he will bring 39 chatois. If he did all those 39 malachis behelam echad, in what way is he regarded as a hazed b'Shabbos, deliberate and aware about Shabbos? The yodel lo Shabbos belav, because he's aware about the significance of Shabbos with relation to the lav involved in those malachis. So he's fully aware of Shabbos. He's fully aware that on Shabbos those malachas are asur. He thinks they're merely a lav. So he's being measured regarding Shabbos. But since he's unaware of the karis entailed in those malachis, he's regarded as a shoygig as it pertains to those malachis. So once again, we have a great example, a scenario where a person can perform all those malachis b'shgaga. Nevertheless, we regard him as a mezid regarding Shabbos and a shoygig regarding those malachis. So this will work well even according to Rava. He knows about Shabbos, he knows the lav, and he goes ahead and intends on throwing this item 4 ames Rosh Hashanah. Why is it a shgaga? because he's unaware of the significance, the full severity and weight of what he's doing. He doesn't realize there's curse involved. Therefore, it's a shogeg. Says the Gemara, okay, this works well if we follow Rav Yochanan's view, interpretation of shogeg. But if he follows, if Rav follows the view, the shita, the opinion of Shimon Lakish, the Amar who says, that we only deem a person to be a shogeg, a person who's unaware, if he's fully unaware. He doesn't know that there's a curse involved in the Avera, nor does he know that there's even a lav associated with this Avera. At that point, he's regarded as a shogeg. So if that's the case, how are we going to understand the halach in this Mishnah of the 39 malachis? The yadala l'shabbos b'may. So if he's unaware of the fact that these malachas are even aser, so in what way is he aware of the significance of Shabbos? If Shabbos entails no malachis, no yisurim, then in his mind Shabbos is an ordinary weekday. So how do we find a case where he is mazed on Shabbos and shogeg and all those malachis, according to Rav and according to Shimon Lakish? Says the Gemara, very simple. There's another issa called tchumen, not allowing a person to leave his boundaries past 2,000 amos. Now, according to Rav Akiva, this is asur min Torah. Says the Gemara, this will be a solution. How to establish the Mishnah in accordance with Rava and Rav Shimon Lakish. Why? Because once again, Rava maintains that a shogeg is only if he intends on doing this form of activity, for instance, to throw the item 4 amas Yisravim. Now, according to Rava, evidently, since he's involved in doing this activity, we can't say that, well, he only intended on doing part of the activity. That's a misasik. So what is the case of shogeg? He intended on doing this activity, but he was unaware of the severity. He's unaware of the isser. According to Shimon Lakish, he was totally unaware that's asur. Not only doesn't he know about the curse, he doesn't even know that there's a lav involved. So he's fully unaware of the isser associated with all 39 malachis. He did all 39 behelim echad with the same unawareness, in the same continuous, uninterrupted period of shgaga. Now, why does he bring 39 chatois? Because these are 39 separate shgagas. Because this person is aware of Shabbos. There's no shigigas Shabbos here to bind them, to combine them together. There's no singular unawareness. He knows about Shabbos. He simply doesn't know about these individual 39 malachis. Says the Gemara, 1 second. But if he's unaware of malachis, in what way is Shabbos significant in his mind? Says the Gemara, we have a solution. Tchumen. He knows that there's Issa Tchumen on Shabbos. So this isn't one of the 39 malachis. This is an Isser, which according to Rav Akiva is asur min Torah. So he knows about that, and therefore in his mind, Shabbos has significance. There's an Isser of Tchumen. So he's at the end of the day, he's amazed on Shabbos. He's deliberate regarding Shabbos. He's aware of the fact that today is Shabbos. He knows what Shabbos is. In his mind, there's an Isser of Tchumen on Shabbos, and that is the significance of Shabbos. So in this case, even according to Rava, even according to Shimon Lakish, if he performed all those 39 malachis, behelim echad, with one lapse, v'shgaga, he'll bring 39 chatois, 1 per malach. Continues the Mishnah. Avos malachis arabaim chasarachas. How many avos malachis are there? 39 categories of malachis. So the concept of avos malachis is based on the fact that these various labors were performed in the Mishkan, in the construction of the Mishkan, in making of the Mishkan. And we learn this from the Pasuk, the fact that the Pasuk joins together the concept of Shabbos right next to the concept of Mishkan. This is the beginning of Parshas Vayakel. We learn from there that the malachos of Shabbos are derived from the Mishkan. So once again, avos malachos, how many avos categories of malachos are there? When we say avos, of course, these are merely the avos, the fathers, the main categories, but there are teilodes, there are derivatives, which we learned in Daf Ayin Amud Beis, that we learned this from the pasuk of Mehena. Hena, Mehena. Hena is referring to the avos. The word Mehena is coming to teach us that there's such a thing called Toldes, something which is derived, which resembles the Av Malacha. That too is asur on Shabbos. The Mishnah will list us all 39 avos malachas. Now, why does the Mishnah use the term Arbaim Chasrachas? I saw several explanations. There's a pirush from the Tesis Yontiv who says as follows, that one of the one of the malachas here is toifer, sewing. The Gemara later will tell us on Daf Ayin Daled that in order to be considered a malacha of toifer, he needs to actually, when he finishes sewing, he needs to actually tie together those loose ends of the threads. Otherwise, it's going to come apart. It's going to unravel. So, in order for it to be considered a malacha, he needs to do actually 2 malachas, toifer and kosher. Says the Taisus Yontif, if so, in reality, in order for him to do all malachas, he needs to do 40, because toifer includes toifer and kosher. Nevertheless, he will only be chayiv 39, because if he does all 40, he's actually doing kosher twice. So the end result will be really 39 chiyuvim. So he says that's the pshat in the Mishnah, arba'im chasar achas, although he really did 40, but the liability only will be for 39. That's one of the pshatim. There are other pshatim, the Kabbalah, many pshatim and Farshim bring. This is one of the pshatim. So avos malacha is arba'im chasar achas. So let's see. What are the 39? As Rashi will explain, they were all found in the Mishkan in various forms. Hazoreya, sowing seeds. So the first bunch of malachas here, of Hazoreya and Chayrish, etc., Rashi explains, were used in the Mishkan to develop the samamonim, those plants, those herbs used for the dyeing, the coloring process, where they need to dye the material, the wool, etc. So all these malachas here related at the beginning of the Mishnah, the first category, were used for the samamonim in the Mishkan. Hazareya, planting, v'achorish, plowing, v'akoitzer, harvesting, v'ma'amer, gathering together the produce, v'hadosh, threshing, v'azoyer, winnowing, haboirer, selecting, picking out the waste, the psoilus, for instance, the pebbles out of the grains, v'hatoichen, grinding, v'amaraked, sifting, v'halosh, kneading, v'oifa, and baking. Now, as Rashi explains, that actually oifa, baking, was not involved in there was no baking involved in the construction of the Mishkan. It was actually mavashal, cooking those samamonim for the dye. Nevertheless, Rashi brings the Gemara that the Tana chose to use the term oifa, which relates, Lashon oifa relate to a dough of a bread, which is more common than cooking the samamonim. Therefore, the Mishnah chose to use terms which relate to common everyday affairs. Therefore, the Mishnah chose to use oifa rather than mavashal. So this first list of malachos were involved in developing this samamonim, the planting, the plowing, etc. Continues the Mishnah with another category. These were employed in making the wool for the curtains, for the sheets, for the materials for the Mishkan. Hagoyed is that summer, one who shears wool. Hamlabnoi, he cleans it, he washes it. Vamenapzoi, he combs it. Hatsoiva, he dyes it. Vatoiva, he spins those threads. So these were involved in producing the tzemer, the wool for the Mishkan. Continues the Mishnah with another category of malachos which were involved in weaving, in producing the yiriyos, those curtains, those materials used in the Mishkan. V'hamesech, he goes and he spreads the vertical threads up on the loom. V'oisish debatanir, and he places the vertical threads, 2 of them, through these loops. So there were these loops where the vertical threads were pulled through, which would enable the threads to be lifted, and the chutei erev, the horizontal threads, to be tossed through it. This was, he's setting up the weaving process. So he puts 2 threads through 2 of these loops. He actually weaves 2 threads. Rashi explains this to mean that sometimes the thread was too thick and unsuitable for the weaving, so they would actually pull out some fibers of those threads to enable them to be woven properly. So he does this regarding 2 chutim. He's peitzea 2 chutim. HaKosher v'hamater. He ties or unties. The Gemara will explain where exactly were these malachas employed in the Mishkan. V'hatoifer shtei tfiros. If one sews 2 stitches. HaKureya, or he rips, he tears. Almanas litvar shtei tfiros. He doesn't merely rip for the sake of ripping. He tears to enable him to actually repair something, to go ahead and make 2 stitches. So these again were employed in the yiriyos, the curtains used in the Mishkan. Comes the next category, hatzot tzvi. he captures a deer. Hasheichtai, he slaughters it. Vamafshita, he skins it, pulls off the hide. So these were employed in the making of the oireis techashim, the hide of this tachash animal, used to cover the Mishkan. So these are malachos that pertain to developing these hides, these leathers. So he's shoichet the tzvi, hamafshitoi, he skins it, hamalchai, he salts it. This is the part of the process, the tanning process of amabed. This oire, he tans it. So he tans the oir, the leather, v'amamachkai, he smooths it out by removing the hair. V'amachatcha, he cuts it down to size. Continues the Mishnah, if one writes 2 letters, or he erases 2 letters, so he erases in order to go ahead and write in its place another 2 letters. Rashi explains, these malachas were used in order to make a simon, to make a mark on the krushim, on those beams used in the Mishkan, in order to know which one belonged next to the other. Therefore they use these letters. So this was a malacha employed in the Mishkan. Ha-boina, he builds, va-soisha, dismantles. Certainly this is Mishkan related. Ha-machabe, he puts out a fire. Va-maver, or he kindles a fire. Once again, this was used to cook those samamonim. Ha-makabe patish. So the word makabe patish literally means a blow of the hammer. So Rashi explains that, for instance, the craftsman, when he would go ahead and flatten out the gold, make them into plates, he would use this hammer, and he would want to make sure that the bottom of the hammer is totally flat and smooth. Otherwise, it would damage the gold. So when he was done, he would go ahead and take the hammer and effect a blow on the sada, on this block of wood, in order to smooth out the hammer. So this was the finishing, the last activity done when he was done his craft. So this is a term used for any maisa, any finishing touch on a melacha. So makib patish, hamoitzi mishus l'shus, one who carries from one rishus to the other, for instance from rishus yachad to rishus rabim. Hare'elu, so in total we have avos malachis. Father categories of malachis are arba'im chas achas, a total of 39. Let's take a look at the 39 malachis. So the mission began with the malacha of Zereah planting, and listed 11 malachis from Zereah through Oifa, which were associated in producing the samamonim, those dyes used to color the materials in the Mishkan. We proceeded with another 5 malachis from Goizes and Tzatzemer through the Toiva, which is the spinning, used to produce the Tzemer, the wool, for the Mishkan. We have 8 malachis from Mesach through Toifer, which were involved in producing the Urias, the curtains of the Mishkan. We have from Tzeda to Mechatech, 7 malachis involved in developing the oiros of the tchashim, the hides of the tachash. We have the kaisev and the moichik, which are used to mark the krushim, to indicate their location. We have boine and seiser, and we have machabe and mavir for the fire to cook the samamonim. We have makebe patish, the final touch of the malacha. We have moitzi mishus l'shus, carrying of the krushim, since they were transported in this manner. Continues the Gemara. Minyan alamli. Why does the Mishnah need to give us a number 39 malachas? It's self-evident. Just take a look at how many malachas there are. Why does the Mishnah see a need to give us the number? Amar Rav Yochanan, there's an indication here. There's a simon here. Shim asan kulam be'elam echad. If he was to do all those malachas, all the 39 within one hell and one period of forgetfulness, of unawareness, chayav aklachas va'achas. He needs to be 39 chatois, because he did it with the Zodin Shabbos. He was aware of Shabbos. But the Shgaga pertained to the individual malachis, and this results in individual liabilities, 39 chatois. Continues the Gemara, Zereah v'achirish. The Mishnah first lists Zereah, sowing, planting the seeds, and then afterwards, plowing. Now which one's meant to go first? Michdi, let's take a look. Mikrav karbi bereisha. First one plows to enable the planting. So why does the Mishnah switch things around? Listening chayrish, v'hada listening zareya. The Mishnah should first list chayrish, plowing, and only then v'hada listening zareya, only then the sowing. Says the Gemara, Tana be'Eretz Yisrael, Koyi, Tana is in Eretz Yisrael, and over there, the Zari Bereisha, first they plant v'hada karbi, and afterwards They plow, as Rashi explains, the earth is stiff, it's hard. And as the Mepharshim explained, they did 2 charishas. They did that initial plowing to loosen up the earth. Then they would throw the seeds in and do another charisha, another plowing in order to cover over these seeds. And this was necessary in Yisrael. And the Tana is teaching us here that even that second charisha, which is coming primarily to cover over those seeds, is still regarded as a malacha of charisha. The point of charisha is loosening the earth, as we'll see later in the Gemara. So that even though over here the primary intent is to cover over the seeds, nevertheless this is regarded as a charisha. Continues the Gemara. Tana, we learned in the Brisa. The first malacha in the Mishnah is Hazareya. Says the Brisa, you should know that within this first malacha of Hazareya, this is a category which contains within it several variations, several different forms of planting, sowing, spurring growth. These are all regarded as Zareya. Tana, we learned in the Brisa, Hazareya, one who actually plants seeds, Vazoimer, or he prunes a tree. This is also necessary to spur the growth of the tree, to develop the tree. Vaniteya, he plants a sapling, a tree. Vamavrich, or he bends one of the branches of the tree into the ground for it to take root and come up elsewhere as a separate tree. That's also a form of planting. Vamarkiv, or he grafts. He takes a branch from another tree, puts it into this tree. This is a form of developing growth. Kulan melacha achasen. They were all regarded as one malacha. They all fall into the category of Zereya. Says my kamashmon. What's the point of the Brisa here? How kamashmon? The Brisa is teaching us a halachic fact. Since all these things are regarded as Zereya, therefore oisa malacha is harbi, mei malacha achas, and echay malachas. The Brisa is teaching us this halacha. How oisa malacha is harbi. If one should perform many malachas, mei malacha achas, who all fall into the same category, they all resemble one malacha. What is the result? Ein echay malachas. He only brings one chatas, because all these malachas are regarded as one and the same. So if he does them all behelim echad, of course, within one period of forgetfulness, he only brings one carbon. Let's take a look at Rashi. Rashi here is at 6 lines from the top, beginning of the words Kula malacha achasen. Says Rashi, the zoimer nami. Not only is sowing, planting considered to be zereya, even zoimer, pruning a tree, is also included in this concept. Why? Because the zoimer nami, let's muchi lanu. It's there to spur the growth, to benefit the development of the tree. Therefore, it is also included in this category. V'nafkamin. What is the halachic ramification of this discussion? The avad leikulan ba'di zereya. If he is zereya, right, he plants, sows some seeds, and he does them all together with zereya. He's zoimer, he's markiv, he's mavrich. He's only liable to one chatas. Why? If one performs many malachas which fall into the same category, the same av malacha, it's only one liability. Explains Rashi. Zerei av malacha. Zerei is regarded as an av malacha. V'neiteya nami av malacha. So is neiteya. Dahin is zereya. He's planting. Ella rather, shezeh b'izroim. The term zereya is a reference to Zerayim. So within this first category, within this first malacha of zereya, there are various manifestations, there are various references. The word zereya references planting seeds. The word neiteya is a reference to planting a tree, but they all fall into the same category. They all regarded the same av malacha. Once again, it says Rashi, "V'neiteya nami av malacha, dahin zereya." Ela shezeh bezroim. The word zereya, the term zereya, is a reference to seeds. V'zeh beilam is the term neiteya, references trees. V'chei mavrich, the planting, bending the branch into the ground. So they used to take a branch from an existing tree and simply bend it into the ground to take root. So this is a form of planting. Umarkiv and grafting. Aval, says Rashi, zoimer, you should know that zoimer, pruning, is a teloda. It's not av, it's a teloda, it's a derivative of this av malach. So once again, the Brisa is teaching us that all these forms of planting, enhancing growth, all regarded the same av malach. Continues the Gemara. Omar of Acha, Omar of Chia bar Ashi, Omar of Ami. Zoimer, pruning a tree, chayev mishum neiteya. If one does so, he is chayev on account of what? On account of the malacha of neiteya. Because once again, the zoimer enhances, spurs the growth of the tree. Vaneiteya. If one plants a tree, v'amavrich, he bends that branch into the ground, Markiv grafts, Chayiv Mishum Zereya, he's Chayiv on account of the Melacha of Zereya. Says the Gemara, Zereya? Mishum Zereya im? Mishum Neteya loy? This is, this Mavrich, this Markiv is regarded as Zereya and not as Neteya? Don't we know that anything involving a tree is Neteya? So why do you say that it's Zereya, not Neteya? Says the Gemara, Ema, Af Mishum Zereya. What he meant to say was like this, that these are regarded certainly as Neteya because they're spurring the growth of a tree, but don't think that Neteya and Zereya are separate. Don't think that Mavrich and Markiv are regarded simply as Neteya and no relation to Zereya. No, they all fall together into one category. And for instance, if one does Zereya, he plants some seeds and also performs these activities on the tree, he's Markiv, he's Mavrich, he's only Chayav, one Chatas, because they're all in the same category as we mentioned earlier. Amar Rav Kahana, Zoymer v'tzarech leitzin. What happens if one prunes a tree? So the point again of Zoymer is to be matzmiach, to help spur the growth of the tree. But this person has a double purpose, a double intention. He's Zoymer, he's pruning the tree, but he also is v'tzarech leitzin. He needs these branches. Chayiv shtayim. He has to bring two chatois. Why? Achas mishum kaitzer. One, because of the melach of kaitzer, he's harvesting. He's using these branches. He's cutting them off for his own sake, for personal use. That is kaitzer. Va'achas mishum neiteya. And the other chata is because of neiteya, because he's spurring the growth of the tree, of the vine. Amar Rav Yosef, Hayman the katal aspasta. If one is to cut this plant, aspasta plant, used for animal feed, so Rashi explains they used to cut it 3 times in the same month. So every time they cut it, that would spur its growth, and they would have to cut it again the second time. So 3 times within a month. So the point here is that the cutting has a double purpose. Number one, it's useful. He uses the whatever he's cutting off for the animal. And number two, he's spurring the growth. He's enabling the further growth of this plant. So once again, here as well is Chayiv 2. Hayman the kata aspasta, Chayiv shtayim. Achas mishum koitze, because he's harvesting. V'achas mishum neiteya, because he's developing the plant. Amar Abaye, another case. Hayman the kind of silka. If one cuts off the silka, he cuts the beets off the ground. Chayiv shtayim is chayiv 2. Why? Because when he cuts it, that spurs its growth and enables it to grow again. So he's doing 2 things. Achas mishum koitze, he's harvesting. V'achas mishum neiteya or zereya, he's enhancing the growth, he's spurring further growth, and therefore there are 2 liabilities involved. Continues the Gemara about Chayrish. Tana, we learned in the Bryce. Achayrish, plowing, v'achayfer, digging, v'achayritz, making a furrow, kula melacha, achasein, they all regarded as the same melacha. The point of the melacha, the underlying principle of the melacha of Chayrish, is loosening the ground. As Rashi says, the marpi ara, he's loosening the ground. That is regarded as Chayrish. So whichever form he does it, charisha, chafira, charitza, it's all the same thing. Amar shishis. Gav shishis v'natla. What if a person has this little gav shishis is a little pile of earth, and he flattens it out, he removes this pile. What is he chayiv? So it depends. Bebayis. If this was in his own home, chayiv mishum boina. He's doing a malach of boina because he's fixing up the home. Besada, if it's in the field, chayiv mishum chayrish. The malacha here is chayrish. Why? Because he's enabling the earth for zriya, for planting. He's loosening the earth. Amar Rabba, ha'isa guma v'tamama. What if a person had a pit and fills it up? Once again, it depends where it is. Bebayis, if it's in his home, chayiv mishum boina. Besada, if it's in the field, mishum chayrish. Because he's enabling this for planting, he's loosening, he's filling it up with loose earth, or as Rashi says, he's straightening out the field. So he's enabling Zriya, he's doing a malach of charisha. Omar Abba, ha'chayfa guma b'Shabbos. What about the following case? A person digs a pit, a guma. His purpose here is, his intention is strictly for the use of the earth. He has no point and purpose in digging this hole. He simply needs to have this earth. Pater aleh, he's pater. Why? Says the Gemara, even according to Rabbi Shita, Rabbi Yehuda holds, malacha she'ena l'tzricha l'gufa. chayiv aleh. If one does a malacha which is not needed for its own sake, there's an ulterior motive here. He's using it as a means to achieve another goal. He doesn't need the actual malacha itself. For instance, like this case, where he's digging a hole, not for the sake of digging the hole, but merely to extract this earth. It's a malacha she'eino tzricha legufa. It's not needed for its own purpose, its own sake. He's not achieving a higher design here. He's not developing something through the malacha. He's merely using the malacha as a means to derive a indirect pleasure, indirect benefit. So Yehuda holds that ordinarily speaking, he is chayiv in such a scenario. In this case, he's pot. Why? Yehuda holds that a malacha she'eino tzricha legufa is chayiv. That's only when he's being masakin. He's developing something. He's being masakin, he's fixing something, he's achieving something, he's designing something. In this case, he's simply destroying, he's ruining something, he's making a hole in the ground. Therefore, since he's doing it for the sake of the offer, he's simply doing it to extract the earth, and this results in a kilkel in the ground. He's merely damaging, ruining the ground there. It's a makalkel, and it is potter. Continues the more about koitzer. You want to harvest. Tana, we learned in the Brisa. Ha-koitzer, it doesn't matter what type of thing he's harvesting or cutting off the ground, whether it's koitzer. This is generally referenced in regard to grains. Ha-boitzer, he picks the grapes. Va-hagoider, that is the dates. Va-hamesik, he picks the olive, the oira, the dates. These are all different terms in reference to different types of harvesting. Kulo malacha achas. They all regard it as the same malacha of koitzer. Omar Papa, Haiman the Shoda, a person tosses pisa, a glob of earth, ledikla up to the palm tree, va'atar tamri, and he shared some dates. So he knocked down some dates off the palm tree, chayiv shtayim, he's chayiv 2. Why? He did 2 malachas, achas mishum toilish. Number 1, he shared the dates off the tree, he's toilish. He picked something off the ground. This is a derivative of telod of koitzer. So this is one liability. Va'achas mishum mefarik. Mefarik means loosening, extracting something from its encasement, and this is a telada of the malacha of dash, of threshing, where the grains are extracted from their shells, from their husks. So this fellow who took this glob, tossed it up on the tree, knocked off some dates. He did toilish, and he also did mefarik, because he extracted those dates from the Rashi says the branches of that hold on to the dates are called machbedis, and when he extracts the dates from those encasements, it's called a malacha, regarded as a malacha of mefarik, which is a talada of dash. Rav Ashi Omar, no, he's not chayiv in this case. This is a pretty weird way of picking dates off a tree. Ein derech lisha b'kach. This is not the typical, ordinary, acceptable manner of harvesting, of picking something off the ground. Vein derech prika b'kach. Nor is it the ordinary derech of extracting something from its encasement. It's called klachayad. It's an indirect malacha. It's not considered to be a malacha on Shabbos. Continues in one of Ma'amer. If one gathers, he gathers the grains. Amar Rava, Haiman de Konef Milcha. If a person gathers salt, Mimal Chata, this was these ponds, these ditches of seawater, where the water would evaporate and leave some salt deposits behind. So he goes out to this Malchasa, this salt deposit, and gathers some salt. Chayav Misham Ma'amer, he's chayav on account of the Malacha Ma'amer, he's gathering. Abai Amar, no, Ein Imr El B'Gedul Karka. The Malacha of Imr only applies to something which is organic, something that grows in the ground, as opposed to salt, which is not Gedul Karka, and therefore there's no Malacha Ma'amer that pertains to it. Continues more about dash, he threshes. Tana, we learned in the Brisa. There are various forms of disha, various variations. Hadash, he threshes the grains. Vamenapets, he beats the flax to get to separate the fibers from its stalks. Vamenapet, a similar concept when he beats the cotton to extract it from its encasement. These are all various forms of dash. Kulo malacha achasein, they're regarded as the same malacha of disha. So in summary, we learned several concepts with relation to several of malachas. We learned that the first malacha of zirei planting actually encompasses many forms of planting. Zirei seeds, zoimer, pruning, noiteya, a tree, marvrich, bending that branch into the ground to take root, or mark grafting. The Gemara told us if one is koitzer shachas, or choitech troden, so he chops these things off the ground, which spur further growth, he is chayiv mishum zareya, because it is spurring further growth. We're going to about charisha. The concept of charisha is to loosen the ground. Whether he's chayfer, whether he's digging, plowing, chayritz, he makes a furrow. The Gemara told us if one removes a mound of earth, or fills a pit in a sod, a field, he's enabling it for proper planting and growth. That is also regarded as chayrish. We learned that the malach of kaitzer, harvesting, applies to grains, boitzer, by olives, goider, by tmarim, meisik, by zaysim, or oyer, by te'enim. They're all the same malach. Dash, threshing of grain, the malach applies to manapits, to beating the flax, or to benapit, beating the cotton. They're all based on the same common principle of extracting something from its encasement. Okay, time for a brief chazara of today's daf. We began with 3 examples of misasik, which according to Rava are regarded as a misasik and not as a shogeg. According to Abaye, they are regarded as a shogeg. We have the example of a person who intends on cutting something detached, and he ended up cutting something bin amachuber. We have the case where a person intended on throwing 2 amas in Rosh Hashanah. He ended up throwing 4 amas. Finally, the case where a person intended on throwing 4 amas in Rosh Hashanah, and it really ended up being in Rosh Hashanah. According to Abaye, these are shgogos, and he needs to bring a chatos. According to Rava, he was preoccupied with things.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Does it sound okay?
Okay. We have this edition, it's page 22. We are holding in footnote number 7. It's on the bottom of page 23, actually.
You got him?
They got no. So if you look on page 22, he says here this is really, I guess, a chiddush in bold. V'koi haya dibroi dvarai elai tamid. This is the son of Chaim Volozhin, who's saying that koi haya dvarai elai tamid. This is what my father used to always tell me. Shezek kol ha'adam lo la'atzmai nivra. That the whole purpose of a person, the whole reason for our creation, our whole raison d'etre, is lo la'atzmai nivra, is we're not created for ourselves. In other words, there's a cardinal error in that we think that we're created for ourselves. Fair enough. Why are we created? We're created for ourselves. So he says no. The main thing he would say is that our purpose in life is to do what we can do for others. I say it's a chiddush. I can't find articulated any place. I can't find. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I can't find articulated anywhere in Svarim that the purpose of a person, the purpose of our creation, is for others. It's nice, but I just can't. I can't find it. It's also very difficult to wrap our brain around because, at least my brain around, because it means to say that if there's ever a question of should I do something for myself or should I do something for others, so then you can ask yourself, like, what's my purpose? Like, why did Hashem create me? Did He create me to do something for? Let's say we would be malachim. So, like a malach says, listen, I got to take care of number one. But you're a malach. Your purpose here is to do a job. So there's no difference. As I always quote the Ramchal, there's really no difference between a person and a malach, except that we're in this world and the malachim are up there. We're really just malachim, meaning, what do we mean malachim? We're at a simple nature, at a simple level, we're just created as workers, to do something in the world. On a deeper level, like the Mekubalim explain, malachim are really all the forces of nature are malachim. Gravity is a malach. it's hard to understand that way because we think of malachim in terms of things, that beings, sort of spiritual beings. Everything Hashem created were malachim, meaning shluchim, including malachim, Raphael, Gabriel, but everything's a malach. So we're part of this world. So being part of this world, what is the purpose of a tree? Is a tree there for the tree? I got to worry about the tree, or is a tree there to give fruit to people? What's the purpose of a cow? What's the purpose of a person? This is what we're here for. We're here. Hashem created us to do for other people. It's a chiddush that if you look at this far, the quote that always comes up is this quote from the Nefesh HaChaim, from the Hagdama of the Nefesh HaChaim. That's the quote. This is the source. But I imagine culminated from every even I'm not going to go there, but I'm just throwing this out there. Like what's the purpose of Hashem? Right. Is that like? Thank you. I mean, so obviously we don't know, but it seems that HaKadosh Baruch Hu can do whatever he wants to do, put himself in a position that his whole purpose is lahativ, to do for others, to do for people, to create a world in order to be able to do for the world, in order to bring out his racham v'chanun. So if you talk about the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we don't even know what's going on there in the Kesser. Well, the part that's important to us is the racham v'chanun, erech hapayim, rach chesed. That's what's important to us, and that's what's important to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to be mofia, what he's doing for others. So if you try to position ourselves in this world, so the correct way to position ourselves, not who am I, but what am I here for? And what it really works out, it changes really everything. It's such a simple little paradigm shift that changes everything in life, that when I have to make any kind of decision, should I, shouldn't I, do I, don't I, it's really about doing it for other people. And that doesn't mean that you shouldn't take care of yourself, because probably malachim have to take care of themselves too. But the thing is that in sense of priority, put other people before you. Gentlemen, others first. There's
I said a much something like you find a guy made out of a machine. So what does it do? It takes care of itself for 70, 80 years. What does it do?
What's the purpose?
That's all. That's what it does. It's like what makes something like that.
Right. Right. Exactly. Good mushroom. Like there's a purpose of a machine. Any machine is to be able to do something. So we're going to do something. So what are we going to do? We're created for something. What do we have to do? We have to do for others. So, but it's the problem is like a machine doesn't have any bechira chavshus. Okay, however you program it, that's what it's going to do. Whereas it's like almost humorous to think about it when you think about a machine, or you think about. But it's the same thing. Or even if you hire somebody, like what's your purpose? Your purpose is to do for the company, not to take care of yourself. That's not the. So if we understand that we are God's machinery or God's tools to do for others, it not only changes our decision making, it changes our whole attitude towards doing for other people. It's not like I'm crawling out of my I'm doing a big chesed, and I should get a testimonial dinner, you get plaques. You're just doing what you were created to do. That's all.
So if I left with Rachel, but is that what you were saying?
That's what Hashem does, right?
That's what you were saying.
Yeah.
Why we do that?
Okay, so I mean, maybe it's a makar. I'm just saying we don't think about it that way. We think of it's a chesed from Hashem that He's doing for others. Not that Hashem put Himself in a position. That's what I'm doing. V'dan v'chayra oyev shalom, reidev shalom, oyev v'sabriyas v'karvim l'Torah. That's what we spoke about. So the footnote says here, kagavna similarly, on the bottom, shurgavnu lahatzia tefillah shlomo hamelech. Often referred to the tefillah of Shlomo HaMelech. This is what Shlomo HaMelech said. These are his words when he built the Bayis Rishon. As he was building the Bayis Rishon in Yerushalayim, which was full of glory and full of beautiful things, and full of kavod. There's a lot of kavod. And he was a melech, and he was very mechubad as a melech. He wasn't one of these melachim that was a straggler. He was mechubad. But what he said was, this is what it says there, Melachim Aleph, Ki ha'amnam yeshev alikim al ha'aretz shetimsa yadcha likmal kol chasadim tovim. Ki ha'amnam means, What does Amna mean? Is it possible, it's like a rhetorical question, Amna, is it possible even that Yeshev Elokim al Haaretz, in other words, you're telling me build a base of Mikdash. Shlomo Melech, build a base of Mikdash, that's my nevuah. So are you saying now, Hashem, this is what Shlomo Melech says, that you're going to come, V'shachanti b'soichai, I'm going to live with you, that you're going to come and you're just going to actually sit here amongst us? Is that what you're saying? Amnam Yeshev Elokim al Haaretz, Shetipsa Yodcha Likmal Kol Chasadim Tovim Asher Yechta Ish L'Reyehu, that whenever there's a fight between Shmerel and Beryl, you know, the silly little things that people get involved with, are you saying that by me building a base of Mikdash, you're willing to be involved on that level? Tasa Chesed B'Gvura Lahatzel Oshek B'Yad Oshka, you're going to use your Gvura to save the person who's being hurt from the person who's hurting him. Ish Asher Yasik Gvura Tishiveu Al Admasai. He's saying that if somebody encroaches onto the territory of another person, right? So I start planting, you know, Reuven plants some of his tomatoes and it goes a little bit over into the earth, into the territory of the other person. So you're talking about 6 inches of land, and let's say Dinnabar full of these 6 inches of land. What are you encroaching on my territory? So are you telling me you're willing to be involved in this? Let's just stop and breathe for a second. When we think about the tachlis of the Beis Hamikdash, we don't think about it as Hashem being involved in my tomatoes. But that's what Shlomo HaMelech understood it to be. When you're saying, V'asuli mikdash v'shachati b'soicham, what you're saying here is that you're going to get involved in the tiny minutiae and you know, really smallness and small-mindedness of people. Is that, Shlomo HaMelech is rhetorically saying, am I understanding the space of Mikdash correctly? That he's not a great, you know, temple to God, you know, where there's unbelievable, you know, where you walk in there and you leave the whole world outside. That's not the pshat. like this place, which is very ethereal and very, you know, this romaim on the bria. Here's a piece of shamayim al haaretz. I think that's the way normally people. That's the way I think about it, anyways. Like you go to this place with you, you can be mispashek. You're free from all the gashmias. Shlomo Melech flipped it around. He said, "You're telling me build a base of Mikdash, and I want a place to live here in this world. So I'm living amongst you. You're going to get involved in all the pettiness that we're involved in." That was Shlomo Melech pointed out. Amazing insight that he said.
So where is this in?
This is page 23. Where is it?
No, I don't have the source.
It's where did Shlomo Melech say this? Malachim Aleph Ches Chav Zayin. But it says there in the you don't have the same book?
No.
On the bottom of the I see.
Today we're pretty sure that today we're pretty sure that Hashem is involved in all kind of things.
Yeah, we take it that way.
Yeah, people say.
Yeah, but it's good. That's because I don't think about it too much. It's really a pella. It's like even the prime minister of Israel, who's not God by any stretch of the imagination, right? So like. The other thing, like, are you really concerned about whether I extend my porch too far or not extend my porch? There's my people, my government. Yeah, we can't have chaos here. So you have malachim, but when Hashem is saying build a base of Mikdash, I want to live there. So you're right. That's how we understand Hashgacha Pratis, and somehow come. But that's how Shlomo Melech understood the Chiddush here is. That's how he understood the base of Mikdash. That's the Chiddush. The purpose of the base of Mikdash is to bring God into the neighborhood.
Yeah, but today, there's not with the Mikdash, but I mean, people still think that, like, we hold it, everything comes he is like,
yeah, we do.
Involved in it.
Good for you. Yeah.
Is that, I guess what even the Reb's example though, a prime minister I understand, but a king, a real human king, would care about each person's porch. He does care about each person in his kingdom in a certain way. And so to say that's such a huge, unexpected chiddush, is it really so unexpected for a king?
Maybe it's expected, but it's not done. I don't.
It depends why the king wants it. Normally, let's say in the ancient time, kings wanted it for their own thing. It wasn't because it was like altruistic or
right.
Isn't there a big difference between caring and being involved with also? Where's that transformation taking place?
Right. So caring we can understand. I care. I have a malchus. I care. See, the reason I think it changes everything is that, like we're all kings on some level, like we're all like, but is the whole, live in royalty, the entourage, the motorcade, all of this royalty. I'm not questioning their kavanas. There's no question in my mind they don't have this kavana. but like it's all about the people. That's so all of the covenant tifaras of the Beis Hamikdash, Shlomo Melech has pointed out, it's all about the people, which he said is a pella. Because I just want to point something out. I've said this many times in different ways. I just want to say it because I think it's part of me. To say, just even Hashem is, like, in a way, like, so out there, like, it's so impossible to conceive of. Little kids have things in their head about an old man with a white beard or some type of a wizard or something that's running the world, or, the truth is that we know that the minute that you think that you can conceive of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you can't. Well, so what is it? Are you talking? You're not talking about anything that we can. You're talking about energy? No, it's not energy. Or are you talking about something beyond energy, like some kind of a force? It's not really a force. You talk about you go to philosophically, like what is God? As mature Jews, impossible. You're stuck. So how are we supposed to daven in front of Hashem with the idea of dalif ne'miat oimed? As a how do what are you asking us to do? Dalif lebiato, or tell me, listen, mote dalif lebiato. You have no idea, but somehow or another daven anyway. And yet here's the point I want to make. Yet it's perfectly natural for us and for that matter all humans to do that, even goyim. It's perfectly natural to totally not understand something. It's something beyond, and then daven a babish personal to Hashem, help me. I don't feel good today. Help me. I need some parnasa. Help me. So somehow or another, it's a pella, no? It's a pella, and this, I believe, is what we're talking about. There's a certain siyata d'shmaya, if you will, that even though Hashem is inconceivable, is totally accessible. It's something that we have to live with, which is complicated to live with if you think about it. Maybe the answer is don't think about it, but that there is a bechina of da. There's a bechina of das, and the bechina of das is l'mala bin aseichel, and yet you tell a bar mitzvah kid or even younger, daven, talk to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, gavet lifnei rabbi. But don't even try to think about who you're talking to, what you're talking to. You're talking to the wall. God's not a wall. We're facing towards the Ark Kodesh. No, that's not it. What is it? So the answer is that there's a certain presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that if you're open to it, it's accessible, not understandable, but it's accessible. I presume, I just had this conversation with my 3-year-old grandson. So he said, he doesn't understand where God is. He said, so I said, well, he's invisible. It's not you can't really see. So he said, oh, so he's like air, like air. So I said, okay, it's like air, but air you
can't argue with a 3-year-old.
You can't argue with a 3-year-old. There's a basic need of a smart little kid to come up with some kind of a mushal. So air was the closest that he could get. Truth is, he's much way ahead of me. And this is like air. Well, air, you can sort of, you can't live without it. You can access it, but nobody sees it. So I told him it's more like Wi-Fi. Well,
you get it?
That was better.
Yeah, you got it.
Wi-Fi is only 50 meters. Wi-Fi is only 50 meters.
Only 50 meters, right. Well, that'll change. But okay, so here's the chiddush of the Beis Hamikdash, that because of so when we daven, here's the nekuda here, when we daven for siyata d'shmaya, v'nasati matar, Matar B'itoi, right? That you're going to make it rain. All of that is what we're. All of that davening, everything that we're doing is only talking about Hashem being present in the world. We're all talking about the Shekhinah. All the tefillos that we like, all the Shemona Esrei, or, I have a headache, help me with my head. That's all about Hashgacha Pratis, all about the Shekhinah. And that's what Shlomo HaMelech pointed out. Like, cool, you're willing to do this. V'nasata lem matar rav ki yev v'nasata lechem yitzirai v'riai tala aruch l'chol negei levav tachbosh la'asveisa. Anybody who's sad, you're going to give him a bandage for his heart, for his soul. You're going to heal the downtrodden. So that's how Shlomo HaMelech understood the base of Mikdash. I just brought this. I want to just read you a paragraph. The Oitzes Chaim, something one day you have to learn, is the written recordings of Reb Chaim Vital's learning by the Arizal. Torah Arizal. This is the Oitzes Chaim. You can't really get closer to the Arizal than the Oitzes Chaim. This is what the Arizal taught, and if you read the Hakdama here, fascinating that there was a number of Talmidim. They all took notes from the Arizal, and the Arizal said, "No, this is not right. That's not right." The only one is Reb Chaim Vital. He's the only one that whose notes are correct. And he told Reb Chaim Vital, "You're the only one who can publish my notes." Then Reb Chaim Vital refused to publish his notes, and he hid them. And at one time he even burnt them. He didn't want everyone. They had to take it from a streifa and put it back together again. He had a pachad of being the one who had the responsibility of recording the shiurim of the Arizal. But at the end it was recorded, and that's the Oitzes Chaim, the Reb Chaim Vital's notes of the Arizal. So he speaks here at the very beginning of the Oitzes Chaim is called Shar HaIgulim. Igulim circles. You look at the Kabbalistic charts. It's like always got a lot of circles. I'm not gonna even. I'm just gonna read this to you, just the paragraph. He says, "Da," first word, "Da." Kitchilas hakol, before there was anything. Hayukol hametzias or pashut. Everything in the world was or pashut. V'nikra, and that or pashut is called Ein Sof, what we would call eternity or infinity. Thank you. Ein Sof, infinity. Remember that this is not a description of Hashem. Hashem is not even. Arizal didn't even go there. What is Hashem? It's talking about after Hashem, no world, no outer space, no Mars, no Jupiter. There was one thing, and that's the Or Pashut, which is called Ein Sof. So when you hear the discussion of the Ein Sof, what we're talking about is a simple light, Or Pashut. It was completely dense. We could spend hours trying to explain these words. I'll just say the words. If something is 100% pure, and before it turns into something else, before it morphs into something else, there's no chalo, there's no space there, there's no extra room there. There's no empty space. There's one thing, or ha'insa. Right? So here's the first sentence of the book. We lost it already. Right? I don't know, maybe there's physicists here who could try to conceive of this, but there was one, or pashut. Pashut doesn't mean pashut. There's nothing pashut about this or pashut. Pashut means that pure. Like lahabza, like maybe uranium, or in other words, you take something in its purest form, and then you can take from that and you can build the whole world. But that where the whole world came from is Or HaPashut. And that Or HaPashut is infinite, So is light really infinite? I don't know. Is light infinite? Probably not.
It's forever.
Huh?
Why not? If nothing stops it, it'll go forever. Like people.
Does it?
Fiber optics
I don't
is
think so.
never ending.
Never ending.
I don't think that's the way the modern scientist understands it. Light has speed, which means at some point it's here and then it's there. So that's not infinite. That's measurable.
It's not this light.
That's measurable.
See, I know there was more to this than I can understand, but probably it's called or Pashut because that's the closest you can get to infinity in this world, because it's going the speed of light, right? So, but I mean in a Pashut way that here's or, and the or goes and goes and goes, and as Moshe says, unless something's stopping it, it seems to keep going. So, but there's this or Pashut. Hakol haya or ha'ein sof. Ukisha'Allah b'Sinai lahatzil hanetzalim. Now HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants that light to reflect on something. L'siba noidas, for the well-known reason. This is really the main sentence I want to read you. L'siba noidas. It's for a very obvious reason. Why does Hashem here's Hashem, and for some reason he made this or pashut. So leave it alone. You leave it alone, there's no world. There's no universe. There's nothing. It's nothing that we would have any. I mean, there's no us. There's nothing. There's no we. So it's just a sort of pashut. Okay, this is why you go crazy if you study Kabbalah, because what does that mean? But HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to take the or pashut and grow it into everything that we see today. Atzilus, Bria, Yetzira, Asiya, the world that we live in. L'siba nodas, for the obvious reason. What's the obvious reason? V'hi likarei rachum v'chanun, because he wanted to be called a rachum and a chanun. So in other words, part of the kimein ba'olam misha yikabel rachamim mimenu, if there's nobody in this bria that needs rachmanas, ech yikarei rachamim, ech yikarei rachum. So how is he a rachum? And that's true with all the 13 kinuyim of Hashem. So just literally chapter 1, sentence 1 of Torah Harizah, that the Hashem in essence, when we talk about the midos of Hashem, Racham, Chanun, Chapayim, in essence, that is Hashem. As much as we can, that's all part of that or, Pasha. Hasn't it? Rachum is the recipe of the or, Rachum, Chanun. But if it doesn't actually manifest itself in anything, if it doesn't actually help anybody, so so it's not about cover. Who's going to call him Rachum? Who cares? It needs somebody to call him Rachum. But if the Rachum doesn't come out the way I understand this, if the Rachum doesn't come out in a practical way, then there's something missing in the Rachum. There's a lack of shleimus in HaKadosh Baruch Hu Gufa that we can understand. Klaimar that like the mashal I always give is if a person has like a lot of money, I want to give tzedakah. Got money, $100 million. I want to give tzedakah. I want to give away $10 million to tzedakah. So okay, that's there. The $100 million is there. The $10 million is there. It's there. The fact that it's allocated for tzedakah, it's there. But let's say, I create a foundation. I talk to the lawyers. I talk to the bankers. I get the checkbook. I incorporate this thing. I work it out with the government. I spent 10 years on this, but no ani ever actually gets the handout of $100 to buy himself Shabbos. So b'meh yikra rachum. It's not tzedakah. At the end, it's not tzedakah. So in order for the shleimus of tzedakah to happen, in order for this tzedakah to be called tzedakah, there has to be a makabel. Otherwise, it's not for the sake of the makabel, really, it's for the sake of Hashem. that the Rachum, it's not that how's anybody know that I'm a Rachum? How's anybody going to know I'm a Chacham? There is no anybody. But is the Rachum really complete if you're not having Rachamim on somebody else? That's the question. So what he's saying over here is, the Arizal, that that the shleimus of the midah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu Gufa is talui in a makabel. So question, why did Hashem create the world? Answer, because there would not be any shleimus to the midas of HaKadosh Baruch Hu if there weren't people in the world.
People with needs.
With needs. And who doesn't have needs? And we all have to. So, Va'az, just reading this just an example, not to. Va'az tzim seimam seibam sahar shalai. Okay. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu then mitzamtzim himself into his ark. And here in these few words of the big, machlokas of tzimtzum, what does it mean? Tzimtzem atzmai, or shalai. Okay.
Can you take that one step further?
If you want to.
The light, it's coming from a perfect light. It was only brought down in this way in order to, which means makabel, in order that the shame, rachum, and all the other shemos should come with it. Doesn't that imply that every single makom in the realized world has to have the ability to be makabel this rachum? Meaning those 6 inches of earth on this person's side of the land or that side of the land is a relevant expression of that.
Oh, so that's not taking a step further.
It has to be. It's a perfect light, so it has to be.
Right. So
brought into this world for that purpose. No?
That's, I don't know. It's a step further. It's due to the point that I'm making. Okay. The point that I'm making is that, like light, again, I'm not a bucky, but like light, if it doesn't reflect on anything, it's not really light. It's light, but until it hits the surface, it's not really light. It's not offering any light. So chaser in the light itself. So it is, as you say, the 6 inches of land. This is what Shlomo HaMelech was saying. That is what we're saying of HaKadosh Baruch Hu building the world, and hence the Beis HaMikdash, and further to the Beis HaMikdash, the Shechina of happening over here. That's all about the permeation of this light hitting the surface of the earth. That's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu does.
According to that, why do you need a Beis HaMikdash then?
It's just the perfect receptor. It's the perfect receptor. You don't need the Beis HaMikdash. I mean, in essence, we have our own problems without the.
If you have makabel everywhere.
What's the Beis HaMikdash? No, but the Beis HaMikdash is the perfect combination of everybody's contributions, of everybody's there. Kol B'nai Yisrael are there. So what we're done is we've created this great receptor, this great antenna, if you will, for the this big thing that's makabel, the Shechina, and that gives the adira b'tachtonim. But you're right. Every place is a adira b'tachtonim.
Shekel is everybody's in there.
Everybody's in there. Not everybody's in there, but everybody's in there with their stuff. Like this one's bringing their gold, and the women are bringing their jewelry, and like everybody's bringing their stuff. So it's my stuff. Like it's so base. It's so gashmius.
Well, that's the thing. It shows that, like we said in Torah, you can take the gashmius and make it ruchnius. If you didn't have something to show that lesson, you wouldn't know.
Right. Over here, though, maybe it's the other way, that Hashem's taking the ruchnius and He's turning it into the gashmius. So. Okay.
Wasn't the Beis HaMikdash a tikkun?
A tikkun. What do you mean? It's a chet. Okay. So he said us that before there was a chet, so HaKadosh Baruch Hu is willing to do this in Gan Eden, keep shutai to the world. But once we pushed away the Shekhinah, so what's going on really in the whole world, every minute of our lives, is HaKadosh Baruch Hu trying to force this light in, and as you say, Adam and Chava pushing it away. So the Beis HaMikdash is completely open to this. How does this translate into our day-to-day behavior? And here he's telling us that it's if we're supposed to be B'Tselem Elokim, if we're meant to be something like Hashem, if that's what we're just carrying on. So like Hashem could also say, like, I'm here, this is me, I'm here for me. And that's why I said before, this like brain twisting question, what's Hashem for? It's what I'm understanding from the Arizal is in my Ani HaKoden. What I'm understanding from the Arizal is that there would be no mashmos to HaKadosh Baruch Hu if there wasn't a world, Kiviyachol, just like there would be no mashmos to our tzedakah if there was no ani. And there would be no mashmos to his rachum if there was nobody who had needs. And if we are not going to sit here and argue about you blocking the light on my porch, so and HaKadosh Baruch Hu getting involved with that, so what then is the purpose of everything? So that's the pshat in halacha, and that's the pshat in the minutiae of halacha. The minutiae of halacha, which for instance, the Christians just don't buy. Like why would God get involved in how thick my tefillin are? So the New Testament's full of knocking this. Worried about the thickness. It's everything. It's everywhere. It's how you shech that cow, and how you eat the cow, and how you clean the cow, and how you take the blood out of the cow. Like that. That's all. It's halal. B'chol drachecha de'ehu. It's got to be everywhere. It's got to permeate everything, every part of our life. I always think about that Gemara that says that one of the Talmidim hid under the bed of his Rebbe while he was with his wife. So he said, give me a break. I have to be a Rebbe every second. He said, Torah he v'lomad ani tzarech. This is an important part of life, and I need to learn about it. That's it. You're stuck, Rebbe. That's like Torah he v'lomad ani tzarech. Where should the ruach of Hashem not permeate? At what point can we close the door and say, okay, must speak? I'm not, like Hilchos Sneis. I'm not talking about, but from this point of view, like it has to permeate every single thing. So, din pruta kedin meya. Dayanim are not entitled to say this is a small case. Take it to small claims court. There is no small claims court. Your pruta is where Hashem, wherever you let him in. That's where he is and wants to be everywhere.
So what Yisro said to Moshe about having all these middlemen, that was not a good thing.
It was a b'diavad, right? V'zeh haya derech limudei. So let's just read this paragraph here. The next paragraph. V'zeh haya derech limudei b'kodesh. This is the way he used to learn. Me'odo from when he was young. Hein b'Torah, hein b'derech Hashem, hayisharim shayimoreh. Whether he was teaching about the Derech Hashem. The Derech always was, Hiniach Kvod Atzmai, Ubacher Loi Lamed Basher Yitav Lahem La'achrina. I saw in the, just want to mention, I saw there was like one of these circulars going around on the Parsha. So I think it was Parshas Tetzaveh. So they had I think from Rav Sternbach, Shlita. So Rav Sternbach was saying that the Kohen Gadol, let's say, has to wear Shmona Begadim. So Kavod Lucifaris was wearing all these beautiful begadim. So let's say let's say the Kohen Gadol says, you know what, like I want to just dress like everybody else. I want all this glamour and everything. I'll do the avoid, but just leave me with the begadim, or the begadim. So he's not allowed to do that. He's not allowed to be Mishamish Beguna without the Begadim. So he says that so too, if somebody is, let's say, a teacher in Klal Yisrael, so you can't say, I don't want to wear the Levush of a Talmud Chacham. You have an obligation to wear the Levush of a Talmud Chacham. So it was like his, otherwise you're a Mechusar Begadim. You're a Mechusar Begadim. That's what he said. So, okay, that's that for the person who's headed in the right place. That's a huge burden. That what he's saying. Like the minute you're wearing these begadim for your kavod or for your tiferes, then of course you're missing the whole thing. It's a huge burden to say that no, you can't just hide and say that I'm not HaKadosh Baruch Hu has to get into those begodim too, the way I'm understanding it. The kavod gufa has to be permeated with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but that's like the ultimate nanivas. It'd be much easier to just be like a regular tzaddik nister. That's like very easy. It's even easier than being a tzaddik nister is to meditate on a mountaintop. That's even easier because you have to deal with all the mishigas of the world, just you and Hashem. But what are you doing? What did you, for this you were created? Let's show these people on mountaintops. It's like, it's not, the idea is to do for the tzibur. And continue Hashem's work. So when he used to teach, he niach kvod atzmai, he left his own covet aside. How so? So here's an interesting thing with the Rebbe. A Rebbe, is a Rebbe teaching what the people need to learn, or is a Rebbe teaching what he wants to teach? A simple example. Asher kikatan kigadol yishmun, he would have listeners that were small people, that were big people. B'chol rubei torosav asher zacha v'zikas harabim, lahiniach yodem lahagi livnei iroi. And what he would do in the city in Volozhin, I saw, by the way, the letters, every if you look at the Shalos and Shuvas, Noda B'Yehuda or Akiva Eger, like they all sign their name, like Akiva Eger, Av based in Depo, or Rav Depo, So I saw the Shuvas or Chaim Volozhin, so he signs Chaim Yelid Volozhin. That's all. I'm a Volozhiner. That's the way he. So he never relieved himself to run to the city people, go to shul. Parsha misidra de shavua yom yom. He would always teach the parsha. What's going on in the parsha? So it means to say he was in yeshiva, and we would run from the yeshiva every day to go to shul and speak to the simple people, the tailors, the blacksmiths. It would speak to them about the parsha. And everybody who came to the Beis Medrash, yotza molei dvar davar kasher kol echa kol lefi darkei. Everybody, from the Amaratzim to the very sophisticated Talmidei Chacham, came out with something. Whoa, what the Rav said. Oy avei apshat kol tu oimet pshutei b'mikra. They got the simple pshat in the pasuk. Darshei harishumim, if they were big mekubalim. Darshu mashalacha aznam. They would say whole drushes about the nuances of Kabbalah. Same speech. But everybody, he had this koach of being able to teach everybody, but make sure that it hits every single ear, because this is the way, the Or Pashut, coming into this world. Short words that he would say, everybody was happy. Nobody walked out and said, oh, I lost him, way over my head. Because he was able to do this in a way to make sure, this was important to him, to make sure that even a little child could understand it. See, it's a new Havana, because they say the Brisker Rav. So what he used to teach, he used to say that he used to say it over the shir on his way to the yeshiva. He used to say it over to the guy who drove him there, the balagala, the horse. So he explained that if my balagala doesn't understand it, then it's not a good shir. That was the famous, you always hear that, and you think, or he wants to make sure that he's not missing any pieces in his sophistication, and even the balagala can understand it. So the point that it came, like the brisker balagala, future gadol, brisker balagala. But it's probably really deeper than that. That if it doesn't work for the balagala, so then it's like stuck here. It doesn't get all the way to where it's supposed to be. So theoretically, you can understand that Torah has to come completely. It's like mayim. Has to go into find its place. This was, I'm sorry, kolkach. Kolkach haisa mitzvah zu chaviva be'enav, which is so important to him. Sheniach kol devarav ba'kodesh. He would leave whatever he was doing, v'haviroid lebei midrasha, and he would run to shul. When people were still davening, v'gadol sham hu. And everybody was besimcha. Rav Chaim Volozhin used to give a little shir after davening for a couple minutes. That was he left everything to be able to do that. There was no self-importance. See, I'm just wondering, how does this? Let's just talk about this for 1 second before we end. Like, the derech of yeshivas, he was the avi yeshivas, right? So he set forth the derech of yeshivas, which is every day that goes by bothers me a little bit more, because here he said, don't print my chidushim. It's not so important. Print the nefesh hachayim. And of the nefesh hachayim, the main thing to learn is per gimel, shar gimel, nefesh hachayim. So, other than yeshivas, they learn Nefesh HaChaim. They don't learn Nefesh HaChaim, but they skip Shar Gimel. Like he said to learn Shar Gimel, so why do we say we should skip Shar Gimel? Like Shar Gimel is the more Kabbalistic, Now, if everybody, I'm just asking a question, but if everybody in the yeshiva world would learn Shar Gimel, then it would be a different yeshiva world. In fact, it would be something like the Hasidim. There wouldn't be such but it's like, we don't get it why. But here he said, forget about printing everything else. I want you to print this because this is what's important for yeshivas. And like, how do we have the chutzpah to skip it? Kasha. But I just the derech. I'm trying to work this out with this derech that seems to be the derech of yeshivas to only accept the best and the brightest. Like how does that jive with the derech of he who founded the whole story of yeshivas? The whole idea was,
how does it jive with the Arpashut?
How does it jive with the Arpashut? That's all he has to say. I was trying to make it easy. How does it? I don't know. You see, at Brisk, you have to do somersaults to get the Brisk Barn Cutler. I mean, these are Gedolei Ador. I'm certainly not one to criticize. The original Lakewood, to get into the original Lakewood was like only Gedolim. Like how do these schools were such sophisticated finishing schools that they wouldn't let anybody in if you weren't like.
The other direction is true also, by the way. Too much focus on the dry pine needle on the floor, and you forget that there's a forest, is a big problem too.
Yeah.
It's not just the one who can only understand the forest, and but too much focus on one little piece of it as its own standalone thing is a problem too.
Yeah, but why can't it be like he did, that you can talk to everybody?
Yeah.
See, I don't, like when I went to school. So I went to regular yeshiva, so there was like really smart kids, and then there was like in between normal like Bananim, and then there was like kids like me. You ran the gamut, and like the job of a good teacher is to speak to the class. You don't just speak to the top third or to the bottom third. It seems that that's changed. I mean, hasn't it changed? Like okay. If you're average, well, we have our special education schools, or if you're an Ilui, like okay, we have a special yeshiva for Iluyim. Like why is that? Like how does that? I'm just asking the question. Like how does that jive with what Rav Chaim Volozhin is teaching? I understand how it makes for a better, Harvard. It's not so fun, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure in terms of a yeshiva. He's explaining here what a yeshiva is, and a yeshiva is supposed to be a yeshiva for everybody.
Who can be a rebbe like Rav Chaim Volozhin or the B'skorot? Who can be a rebbe like Rav Chaim Volozhin who can cater to everyone at once?
So don't be a Rosh Yeshiva. That's what a Rosh Yeshiva is supposed to do.
Well, okay, so Rosh Yeshiva, but we have you have classes, you have grades.
Everybody? The Vada took everybody?
Did the Volozhin take everybody? I don't even know. I'm just saying that what we're learning here, right? So what we're learning is that there was a certain, I don't know how you got accepted into Volozhin. I don't know. You see, I'll tell you something about the Navardik and Salbak. As far as I know, it's unlike today. Like not everybody wanted to go. It wasn't. It was something unusual that a person wanted to go to a yeshiva and dedicate his life to Torah. Now it became, you can't get a shidduch unless you do this. But this is, I think that's kind of new. I think, like, you know, I don't think he got such covet amongst the people for sitting and learning, you know, like a bank kvetcher. Like, so I don't know if it was such a nisayan. But I just what I'm asking is, and I'm just asking, I'm sure that the Gedolim have, like, is this whole idea of like a snob school have any place in the world of the Volozhin Yeshiva system that he set forth? Because our whole system that we learn, the Baba Kama, Baba Metzia, Baba Vasa, that all comes from Chaim Volozhin and from Volozhin Yeshivas. All the yeshivas that came from there came from this, you know. So this, like, we're skipping Shar Gimel here a little bit in terms. So it needs to start a little bit.
It's deeper than that. The method of pedagogy is one which caters to these splitting up of levels, and we're so ingrained in that any change in pedagogy method, teaching methodologies, is considered also usur.
Of course.
We tried this in Passaic. I mean, almost half the community almost got put in chayrim from it, just to teach Torah in a different way.
So let me make a political statement, and with this I will end for today. You see, the problem, in my humble opinion, is that we don't distinguish between reactions to a situation and what is in essence correct. And what I mean by that is that there was a Holocaust reality. We lost Gedolim, we lost yeshivas, we lost Rabbanon, everybody knows. Now, there was a question like, will Torah be able to survive a Holocaust or not? Okay, there's miracles that happen. I mean, the state of Israel is a miracle. Panuch Yeshiva is a miracle. It's a miracle that somehow out of these ashes came forth what we have here today. I mean, we're miracles. You know, the Baal Tshuva movement is a miracle. It was like unbelievable miracles. But the question on the table was, how do you get Torah to survive this type of a Holocaust? And the system, I mean, it could be the system of school, you know, just regular yeshiva teaching everybody and just doing that thing, was not creating or replacing the Gedolim that we lost. So the reaction to the Holocaust was to create some kind of a production for a finishing school for Gedolim. Now, makes sense, right? And so many, you know, I heard something from one of the Gedolei Ador that lives today. It always just jarred me, but he said it. So he said it, you know. So he said that, look, our system, you know, it's not for everybody, right? The yeshiva system's not for everybody, but you say we lose a few, but what can you do? You have to in order to continue. You know, al karchach, you're going to lose a few along the way. But you see, what that is a reaction, a slasius lashem, a feritary secha, a reaction to something so horrible as the Holocaust. But it doesn't mean that it's right. It just means that that's what you have to do at that time. There were many slasius lashem. We wrote down the Torah. There are many things you have to do so the Torah doesn't get destroyed. My question really is, at what point does that, like, sort of heter end? Until it seems to crawl into becoming the essence of Yiddishkeit. So what you have is a religion of reactions instead of what's the essence of what's the Ratzon Hashem. You can't like, everything's an emergency. So you can't create a hospital's a hospital, doctors are doctors. It can't be the emergency room. Like that, the emergency room has its own way of working, its own triage system, its own, you know, exactly like we're talking about, emergency here. So, you know, like, what are you going to do? You know, chop off his leg. Like, it's not medicine in the normal sense of the word. Emergency medicine is a field. So that's what we're dealing with for the last, so the question, when does that expire? 50 years, 60 years, 100 years? Never? Now, can you go ahead and bring a raya that this is the derech of Torah from what people did when they were in an emergency situation? Ain't done an efshir me efshir. I don't. I'm taking a risk by even asking this question, but I'm just wondering if there's not a place where we say, look, let's go back to the source. And let's go back to, let's say, the Aviha Yeshivas, as our case is, and say, how did he work? And how did he operate with people? And in the world of Rav Aaron Kotler, Zecher Tzadik V'Kodesh L'Vracha, he told people that to be a Rav of a shul, rabbi, is avodah bezuya. And what is argued with Rav Soloveitchik. Now, was it like, you get involved in the minutiae of balabatim and arguments and politics and talking in shul, sit in the base medrash and become a tzaddik and become a gadol, a big Talmud Chacham. A correct reaction. I mean, you can understand the reaction to somebody who went through a Holocaust. You can understand what, we need to, who says we can't create Rebbe Kiva Eggers? Who says we can't create Chassam Seifers? But nobody would say that was right. It was just an emergency reaction to a situation. How can you say it's right? It's not the Torah of Klal Yisrael, so that everybody has to have a piece of it has to permeate everywhere. So so it became this Indian. So what happened? That the level of this is a big carbon, just like you have to lose a kid here and there. You lose a community here and there, because what would have happened if all of these Gedolim would have become Rabbanim of Shuls? In my humble opinion, the whole Gola, the whole America would have looked completely different. Because and it's ad kedei kach, by the way, that even let's say forgive me for my forwardness, but I was at a wedding with a very chashuv Rav. Very chashuv Rav was a musmach of Rav Soloveitchik. He's the Rav of a big shul, Talmud Chacham. And I said to him, wow, what's a wonderful thing, big shul, what is chus? So he said, my chaverim, why you? My chaverim all make fun of me for this. What are you doing with the shuls and balabatim? I said, something learn, So, it's turned, it's not like even there's two hashkafas anymore, even there. Now, I'm not saying this is better, that's better, I'm not, the last one to get involved with this kind of stuff. But what I'm saying is that, it's become, the academia has become the ikar. Now, the question is, I'm all for it. I'm all for the academia. I'm all for godless and Torah. But the question is, is that the derech of Rechayel? And is that the derech Hashem? Is that the derech of the Or Pashut? Bamen nikra rachum. What is the Torah for if it's not reaching the shoemaker? That's the question I'm asking. What's it for? That's not what it. That's you're not using the product as intended. You're not using the world for its designated purpose, which is to be able to make the Kvod Hashem permeate every single place in the world. So, okay, the answer, let's make a Kiruv movement. That's not the answer. That's a make a Kiruv movement. Who wants to be part of a Kiruv movement? Who wants to be, the answer is the Torah should be everywhere. That's the answer. The answer is not okay, I'm a designated Kiruv guy. The answer is Torah should be everywhere. Everyone, everywhere. And it seems to me that was the derech of the Chavetz Chaim, that was the derech of the Gedolim before the war. That was the derech. I read to you inside. Reb Chaim Oizer, Gadol Ador. I read to you inside last week. Reb Chaim Oizer, Gadol Ador, said that I used to think it was all about writing Chidushei Torah. Now I realize that's personal entertainment. The main thing is to help an almana. Yeah. So that's Akasha Tzarachian Al Pi HaRizal.
Kabbalah and the Psychology of the Soul, taught by Rabbi Ben Zion Krasniansky.
We continue on the journey into the 39 melachot of prohibited activities on Shabbat. The two covered in this video are the final two in the grouping of hides, or the making of leather. In previous videos, the melachot of trapping the animal, killing the animal, skinning it, tanning the hide, and smoothing the hide into the completed leather were covered. The final two melachot in this section involve cutting the leather into the usable pieces. Once the leather is completely cured, preserved, and smooth, it is scored with lines to mark where it is to be cut. Then the leather was cut to a specific size in order to sew them together to make the large coverings for the Mishkan. Meser Tate is scoring the leather to mark where the cutting is to take place, and mechatek is the actual cutting to a measured size. So scoring would be making any kind of guideline or outline on a surface for a useful purpose such as cutting, and this is prohibited to do on Shabbat even if the cutting doesn't occur until after Shabbat. Making any guideline on any object in order to cut, tear, or break the object into a specific shape or size would be problematic. Making any horizontal lines on an object in order to write in a straight line, making dots on a piece of paper in order to connect them with a line, or scoring any object with your fingernail, maybe in order to cut it after Shabbat, would be prohibited. So some other real-life applications, well, while there's really no prohibition on folding a piece of paper on Shabbat, if you're folding it with the specific intention that you're going to tear it off on the fold after Shabbat, then that would be prohibited. Many packages and containers come with a perforated plastic seal, for example, cottage cheese. There's no problem with tearing along those lines since there is no intention of obtaining a certain size, and the perforations are just there to make it easier to open. Boxes of tissues also come with perforations to enable the box to be opened, but a specific size opening is the result. So when opening these boxes on Shabbat, it's preferable that they are not opened following the perforations. Now, Messer Tate scoring does not apply to food. So if you want to make some guidelines on the frosting so that you can cut even-sized pieces of cake, that's permitted on Shabbat. Or scoring the peel of an orange with a knife to make it easier to peel it, that's also permitted on Shabbat. Mechatek is measured cutting, and in the Mishkan this was the cutting of the finished leather to a specific measured size. So this cutting not only applies to leather, but it also applies to any kind of material. So the intentional or deliberate measured cutting of any material to a specific size or shape would be prohibited on Shabbat. So for example, if you've opened a bottle of wine and you can't get the cork back in the bottle, for you to shave off pieces of the cork so that it would fit in the bottle would be prohibited on Shabbat. Tearing off a piece of wax to cover the sharp edges of your braces, since you're cutting it to a measured size, even though you're just using your fingers, would be measured cutting. Cutting a sheet of paper into smaller pieces, or if you have a large piece of aluminum foil and you want to cover a small pan in the kitchen, cutting that down to size so that it fits the small container would be prohibited. It would be okay just to take that large piece and completely wrap it around the entire article. So tearing toilet paper or paper towels on the perforations would be prohibited on Shabbat because you do get a measured, consistent size. Just like Messer Tate, Mechatek cutting does not apply to foods. So this does differ from Korea, even though it seems similar. It's similar to the tearing, but since Korea does not apply to all different kinds of materials, it does have a difference, and then Korea also is not even referring to cutting things to a certain size. So that concludes the brief review of Messer Tate and Mechatek, scoring and cutting. These two melachot have fewer applications than some and may be an easy addition to your Shabbat. So continue on your journey into Shabbat and continue learning with Torah.
Last one we did was to not torment people verbally, and we said that includes parents, wives, and children, and anybody. And this is probably one of the harder.
So today's class is on patience itself. It's time to stop practicing humility. No, not really. But our focus is going to be on patience this week. Now, I really hope that you actually are working on this, because it doesn't do any good if we talk about this on Sunday and the rest of the week you just kind of blow it off. Really, Musar is extreme spiritual fitness. When I was Army chaplain, we used to have spiritual fitness program. Remember that? And I would get with the Special Forces guys and would ask them to come do 3 or 4 day training out in the middle of nowhere, out in New Mexico, and we would combine survival and spiritual survival together and talk about the need for to be sort of tactical about your spiritual survival and to do well. Well, this goes along the same thing. This is a whole idea of spiritual fitness. We have to sort of develop muscle memory for these positive traits. And as we well know, just like physical fitness, negative traits can have muscle memory as well. And you just react out of the negative traits immediately, and it just becomes second nature. And that's why a lot of people say, well, this is just who I am. I mean, this is how I am. And the reality, you don't have to be that way. Musar teaches that patience governs our ability to bear burden of an uncomfortable situation. Patience governs our ability to bear the burden of an uncomfortable situation. When things go well, we don't need patience. I mean, really, we don't need patience. Rather, patience is a gift because it helps us get through difficult times when we have no control over the outcome. Rabbi Menachem Mendel Leffen wrote in his Musar class, in, quote, The Accounting of the Soul, Cheshban HaNefesh, he says this: woe to the pampered man who has never been trained to be patient, either today or in the future. He is destined to sip from the cup of affliction. Have you ever been around someone who's never dealt with any difficulties in their life? You've not ever dealt with someone who's never had any difficulties? There are a lot of people that's not really had bad problems. They've just had their own regular problems. You know, there are some people that's never really dealt with death and dying, for example. And then when someone dies or gets sick, well, actually, that's the person, when someone gets sick, they fall apart. Right? But they've never dealt with death and dying and suffering. And so when something happens small, it just becomes a big thing. Like we did in last week's class on humility, we have a spectrum. Okay, so if you want to, on your notepad, draw an arrow, and with an arrow pointing in both directions, you can have both ends. Too little patience creates anger and frustration. Too much patience, inaction, and fatalistic attitude. Too little patience, anger and frustration. Too much patience, inaction, and fatalistic attitude. So if you want to look, the spectrum is patience in the middle, inactive, fatalistic, impatient on the other end. Where do you want to fall? Now, obviously, we don't want to be impatient. We also don't want to be inactive, being, well, whatever happens, happens. That's not what we want to do either. And it's not an attribute of faith to be inactive or to not be decisive in making a decision. It's important. Where do you think you sit on the spectrum of either too little or too much patience? I don't know. I think some people who have too little impatience sort of appear to those who are us that are impatient as being extra saintly. And in reality, they're just have too little impatience. And they just too much patience. They let people run over them. They let their children run roughshod over them. We see this a lot of times in families where I look at someone whose children take advantage of the parents and I say, oh, well, you're a saintly person. Then I realize, no, this person has too much patience, and the children run over them. The children abuse them. They take advantage of them. There's a commercial on television, and there's a college kid home, and I don't know, it's about some dishwashing or soap or something for clothes, and she's washing his clothes, and she's going through the house picking up all of his dirty clothes, and when she gets in the kitchen, he's on a video game, and you know, he's 22 years old or whatever, and she walks in the kitchen, and he looks at this Google thing he has there, and he goes, "Can I have this?" And she goes, "No, it's mine," right? Now, if my son would have said, "Can I have this?" I would have said, "Yes, go out and buy your own and you can have it," right? But the point is you have this parent, in many cases, let a child run over them. It's very easy to do. Now, the Hebrew word for impatience, I'm going to give you the what do you call it, the transliterated sound of it, but it's called savlanut, which means tolerance. The same root gives to the words that means suffer, or sevel, and burdens, sivlot. We learn from this that patience is not necessarily a pleasant experience. We should expect patience to be hard work. We usually find it to be. That may mean enduring and tolerating, and the experience may even be quite burdensome. To deal with a burden or a difficult situation with patience is a great gift. Now the problem is most of us, when we are experiencing the highest level of struggle while we're trying to exhibit patience, we get frustrated with ourselves because we feel like that we should feel unburdened by it. You follow? We should feel like, well, if I'm such a saint that I'm being patient, why is it that I feel so impatient? Now, see, I want you to understand that it's all right to feel impatient because nobody wants to go through the difficulties. No one wants to have to go through one thing breaking after another. You know, it's like getting up in the morning before you put your slippers on and you step in a cat fur ball, step in a cat fur ball, and you skip across the room on one foot, trying to get to the bathroom, and step on a nail that's protruding through the carpet. You understand what I'm saying? It's like one thing after another, and you, at the end of it, it's like, oh, it was so horrible. I felt so frustrated. I felt so angry. And, you know, I think I may have said something I shouldn't have said. And then the whole time you realize, no, actually, I was very patient because I didn't kick the cat across the room, right? I didn't punch a hole in the wall. I didn't get up and, you know, fuss at the children because I stepped in the cat fur ball. The point is you're going to feel very unhappy in some situations. We only need patience when we are already impatient. If you're standing in line at the bank, oh, this is me, and it takes forever for you to cool as a cucumber and whistle and be very happy tune, you have you have sort of what do you call it, a nirvana, then you don't need patience. Okay? It's when you are fuming and about to boil over that you need to be able to call out the soul trait of patience. We get in trouble with impatience because of our reactivity. Sure, the issues may be real. You're late. You need it now. There will be consequences, but whatever the problem, no matter how great or how small, it is one thing to face those life issues just as they are, and quite another to slosh impatience all over the situation. Reactivity like this only increases our burden by adding the whole extra dimension of inner suffering and the already difficult experience. For example, I'm running late for a job. And on the way to the job, the traffic is horrible. This is my classic thing. Traffic is terrible. There is nothing I can do about the traffic. It's not like I didn't start early. Now, I would be angry at myself if I had started 30 minutes late, but I started 45 minutes early. This is classic Houston traffic. And you're sitting in it, and I can feel myself getting frustrated and irritated and thinking, why didn't I start earlier? And you know, all the if-whens, maybe I should have took the Beltway and should have took the loop and took the underpass and the overpass. And you realize sitting there and doing that does not accomplish anything. So at that point is when I have to engage patience. And we're going to understand the secret to engaging patience in a moment. It only takes a split second for the first glowing embers of impatience to ignite and send flames coursing through our veins. Before you know it, you're leaning on the horn, you're saying things you shouldn't say, or you're at least thinking things you shouldn't say, and you are thinking that if it's possible that everybody could do what I want them to do, I could feel so much better. If everyone could drive like I drive, life would be so much better. If everyone at the mall or at the airport walked in the same direction as everybody else, that would be so fantastic. Wouldn't it be great to be able to go into a public place and everybody just sort of go with the flow instead of go against the flow? It's much better to be able to catch our impatience as it is arising. It's almost too late once you let it go. It's really embarrassing when we let it go. Now, I think most of us in this room are probably pretty good about capturing it. And let me ask you, what would be the motivating factor for any of us in this room to put a cap on it and to be careful not to let it out? That's good. That's a one. Say again. Very, very good reason. There's another one I'm looking for. How about dignity? Because I don't want Carla to think that I'm a jerk, right? So I'm going to be a patient person around people. But the question is how are you when you're not around anybody? See, that's the true test of how much patience you truly have, is what kind of person are you when no one's around? See, it's difficult to, look, if you're ever in a situation where nothing ever bothers you, then you're probably dead, right? Because no matter how much you've sort of arisen to some saintly level, there is something that's going to push your buttons, whatever it may be. But the key is going to be, is out of just pure dignity, most of us would not react in a way that would be embarrassing. But you and I both know that there are people out there, and my wife and I have had this discussion before about seeing certain instances take place. I'm thinking, does this person at all have any sense of dignity? Like, does he or she not care what other people are thinking about him right now? There's a famous video on YouTube. A woman goes to the bookstore clerk, like, you know, one of the big book brand names, and she's asking for a certain book, and he goes, I don't know, I've never heard of it. And she is completely indignant. I don't know if you remember seeing this. She's screaming, she's slamming her hands down, and she's almost at the verge of just rage. She cannot believe, what kind of bookstore is this? What kind of idiot are you that you wouldn't have this book? This guy's one of the most famous authors in the world. She's going on. And I'm thinking, this woman probably has never even considered what she looks like around to the people around her.
Well, today somebody is filming it and it's on Facebook.
That's the embarrassing thing, is somebody's, right. That should be the big deterrent. Right. So I think that most of us are able to practice some of these things, for example, patience, because we do have a little dignity. That we go, I don't want to look bad in front of other people. But the true test, as Rabbi Moshe Chamlazato says, is, yes, I am patient in front of people. Yes, even I practice patience when I'm by myself, but inside I'm a raging lunatic. But Rabbi Moshe Chamlazato says that a person who's perfected himself has dampened the raging lunatic to where he's brought that under control. And that's the goal of this true spiritual fitness. We experience impatience through these physical indicators that need to become sensitive to them so that we can identify them as they first arise in us before we take charge. The practice is to witness and name the feelings just as they come up. Okay, so think about this. Tell yourself that at the first appearance of the sign of impatience in you, you will say to yourself, I'm feeling impatient, right? Or, there's impatience. Just by forming these words, you will hold open at least a tiny crack through which the light of consciousness can still shine. Being honest with yourself. You know, one of the things that I think that is difficult, especially when it comes to ego. And once again, Musar, has no place for ego. Ego is going to be your worst enemy in this deal. But if you dampen the ego and someone corrects you, like when my wife says something that corrects me, of course I might say something snide like, oh, you think you're Dr. Melanie Bryan, MD, or whatever, right? But in reality, she's right, and I'll admit she's right, but not in a way that gives her too much. No, I'm just picking. But, I admit to a way because it's your ego, right? You hate to admit that somebody's right. But I think that by acknowledging it, first off, that I am feeling impatient is one of the first. It goes the same with any of these things with Musar. As I said, just forming the words will allow you to at least put a stop. You can recognize this is what's happening and not let it get out of control. Here's an interesting quote. I love this. It is an illusion to think that we control very many of the factors that shape our lives. You ready? You hear that? It's an illusion. I mentioned it before class. Michael and his dad was standing here, and I said, patience become easier when you get older because you realize there's a lot of things you can't control. I mean, you just can't control, and there's nothing you can do about it. And oh well, you're just going to have to deal with it. The real root of impatience is the erroneous belief that we are masters of our fate, that we can actually control the circumstances around us. That's why we have this saying that we say, God willing. Everything's God willing. I can remember the old folks always used to say, God willing, the creek don't rise, or something like that. The whole point is, God willing. This is because we realize everything is in the hand of the Creator. And if everything is in the hand of the Creator, then there is some responsible for us to put our trust and faith and munah in God and say, this is out of my control. Now, I think that most of us in this room, because I respect you guys and you're very good people, and I realize that most of us in this room, your impatience and mine for sure, comes when you realize that you're in a situation because you created it. Right? I shouldn't have done, if I wouldn't have done this, this wouldn't be the situation. And you become impatient with yourself. In the same mind that I would say that we should be patient around things about us, we should be patient with things that we have done as well. We're actually wired into all kinds of larger circuits and systems, from the molecular, the social, to the spiritual. And it's an illusion to think that we control very many of the factors that shape our lives. Least of all can we expect to rule the timetable according to which life takes place, which is usually focused on our impatience. The Musar teachers encourage us to contemplate these truths, because when we realize the deeper understanding of our rightful place in the universe, that helps us to avoid getting ourselves all worked up when things don't go just precisely as we wish they had. So one of the things that we're learning here about patience is to have patience, is to understand that there's a larger scope of the world, that some things are out of your control. And things that are out of your control, we have got to set back and sort of ride the wave. You have to what's the word? It's like a guy who's a surfer. If he doesn't get on the wave and know how to manage that wave can destroy him. He's got to get on and sort of ride the wave. He can't control the wave, what the wave does. And we can't control many of life's circumstances, but we can choose how we react to those situations. Even though we often have our eyes focused so directly in front of our noses that we don't perceive these truths, all of our lives are actually integrated with a grand scheme of time and space, spirit and matter, moved by hands that are not our own, moved by the hands of the Creator, blessed be He. Of course, we're not totally powerless, but it is important to sort out what actually is within our power and what is not. And as this